going to call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. sharp. Welcome, everybody. So before we get started, for folks that are out in Zoom land, if you could do us a favor, if you could change your name to a full name, first and last, if you haven't done so already. Just makes it easier for the record keeping. So if we could do that. And also, we do have quite a few folks, so we will certainly be looking for hands raised, and we will do the best we can to pay attention to the folks in Zoom, as well as here in the audience, as well as our board members. So if we don't get to you right away, apologies. We will do the best we can to make sure that everybody gets a fair shake and is able to speak during the course of this meeting. All right, so jumping into board norms. So the board norms are to be respectful of the agenda, be respectful of each other, and any changes to the agenda? Do you have anything else, Bill? No? All right, moving on to correspondence. We had a lot of correspondence. Most of the correspondence fell into these two different categories here. One being letters about the board making a board statement, or the board making a statement on hate speech. And the second one being letters about long-term planning process and access. So those are the kind of the two major categories. So the first one, in regards to hate speech, we've seen a lot from other towns, select boards. Our Townsend Select Board just made a statement coming out of the most recent meeting. I think it would make the most sense, certainly for us, to follow suit and do the same thing. I would feel comfortable if it could be myself and Mike and Joe. If we could go off to the side and just craft something to speak to this awful matter. So if the board would entrust us to do that, I would be glad. I don't know if Mike or I don't want to speak for Mike or Joe, but certainly be glad to do that. And certainly before we do that, if the board would like to give us any guidance on what to be included in that, certainly would be willing to receive any feedback or thoughts on that. Anybody on the board want to, first of all, does the board agree that we could go off and do that? Craft a message to address this?
I think you can handle it without input from the board. I think you have a feeling of how everybody feels on that subject.
Okay, great.
Dana has something.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Dan. Go ahead.
I would not reference the specific incident that occurred, but make it more general, so that way it covers all instances.
Yeah, and not drawing attention to that particular person who...
Yeah, so that way we don't get into the violation, free speech, open politics into this matter.
Okay.
People who live in this community live on both sides of the fence. But hate speech and hate language should be generalized so it covers everybody.
Okay.
The town of Townsend's language is similarly general, so that
Yeah.
seems like a good model.
Okay. Okay. Select board as a model. Got it. Great. Anything else in terms of guidance? No? All right. Seeing none. Mike, I don't know if Joe is on yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So yeah, I will be sending an email to you two shortly, tomorrow probably, and we'll go ahead and we can work on that and craft it and get it to you, Bill, and then to whomever.
Yep.
Great. And I would definitely, I want to appreciate everybody who did write in a letter. Very, very important matter. And couldn't agree more, and we will do our best as a board to address it and speak to it. Thank you. The next of the two major correspondences was the letters about long-term planning process and access. And I just want to tease out a few pieces that we heard, or requests. Number one request was that we have Zoom access to those meetings. So similar to this meeting, it would be available via Zoom. Also, there was a question about the timing. I think they're mostly like 5:15 in the afternoon, which is a difficult time for a lot of families or people that want to engage and be a part of the process. So that they noted it as a difficult time for them. And I'm sure as long-term planning team knows more than ever that we want engagement as much as possible and accessibility. So those were kind of the major things that I teased out of the correspondence. I think one other was having minutes being taken, professional minutes taken, so that somebody who would be reviewing it, who couldn't attend the meeting, would have just a better understanding of what actually happened during the meeting. So, Bill, did I miss anything on that?
No, I think those were the three big ones, and the Long-Term Planning Committee heard from the public at their last meeting, and I thought they, were very receptive to whatever the public is interested in. The Long-Term Planning Committee seems very committed to making that available and out there. And they've got, they've hired Suzanne Paw to make sure that the West River Ed org site is specific with an enormous amount of info. So I think they're on the same page with you, but they'll probably need an opportunity to kind of flesh that out.
Okay. Yep. All right, sounds good. All right, let me move on to members of the public. So if you don't see what you want to speak to on the agenda, certainly now's the time to raise any of those concerns. But if it is during the course of the meeting and it's on the agenda, you can certainly speak to it at that time. So if there's anything above and beyond. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Patty Dixon, Jamaica. I'm wondering, I'm kind of confused about warnings and what is a warning, where are they, when do they come out? In Jamaica, the town office hasn't been getting them since January, so my thought, I would think that each town should be getting a warning of meetings. They haven't been, and if they're, like if the long-term planning committee needs a warning, sometimes those don't come out until like the day before, 2 days before, that kind of thing. So I think, I'd like to, because I missed a meeting because I didn't think it was happening because I didn't see a warning and it was 2 days before, and I just think a little more attention on that. And having it in each town, at a town office, a paper copy so that you don't have to, go
Gotcha.
hunt for something.
So you're looking at timeliness as well as placement.
Yep.
Where it's at. Okay.
All warnings should be published at each town hall in the district, at each school in the district.
It might be a
Automatically, they
Jamaica
should be
school, but
posted
it's
at
not
least
the
those
town.
physical locations, correct, Bill?
So in general, for our long-term planning, we've made sure that they go to every single school, because those times and places do change, so I apologize if you missed one. Our routine for regular meetings is having it at towns and schools, but there's no reason that we can't duplicate that as well, and I appreciate the feedback, and I will follow up to make sure that that is our
I think
Normal
warnings
process.
from every committee meeting should be also posted at each town office, just as if it were a regular meeting, because all these topics are very, especially this topic, is very important to the public, and the public should weigh in.
Great.
And should meetings,
Yeah.
generally warnings are supposed to be out 7 days prior. I read it.
Warnings should be, Bill?
They're usually 48 hours prior.
I read it in some.
But I will follow up on that. Sometimes meetings do change and we get them out as fast as possible, but.
Well, I wish it was a week also myself, but it is.
Because people can plan then
Yes.
to be at a meeting instead of 2 days before, and they've already got plans that they can't change.
Right. Okay.
That's
Thank you.
that's
Just a
state,
thought.
by the way, that's
Yeah.
state, that's state, that's not us, that's the state who.
Right. Okay.
Got it.
Thanks.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. So you'll look into that, Bill, to confirm?
On it right now.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate that.
He's got better internet than I do. All right. This is exciting. Student reports. We have our students here. Yeah, where is Ainsley?
Ainsley just hopped on too.
She did? All right. Very good.
Okay, does Ainsley want to go first? So, recently, like this year, new to this year, we've been doing our PBL Wednesdays, which is project-based learning Wednesdays. And personally, I found it very helpful as a junior to have that time in the afternoons to go over things like what career, like interests I have and what careers that can lead to and stuff. And it's really helpful to have that time in school to see what is open to me in my future and stuff, and like so many careers that a lot of us probably didn't even know existed. We've had presentations from AmeriCorps, the Peace Corps, Job Corps, and stuff like that, and it's a very helpful time and stuff. We also don't have to come into school until 9:15. Ansley.
Is he there?
She just hopped on, yes.
Oh, okay.
I can say what she was going to say.
You might just
Are
have
we
to.
doing the reports right now?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yep, gotcha.
I only caught the last little part of Ruthie's speech about the PBL Wednesdays, but right now I'm getting to work on my college applications every week, and it's been really helpful to have that one-on-one time with like 10 to 15 other students that have the same, that are working on the same stuff. I can't say that I'm as excited for the next module because it is, a new thing, but it's part of our system that we're doing, so take it head on with a positive attitude. And I don't know what else Ruthie talked about, but we're heading towards the end of our fall sports seasons. Things are exciting. The girls are going to playoffs, the boys are going to playoffs, and we had a pep rally a few weeks ago, and the atmosphere I feel like is just really great, lots of spirit, and it's really great to see that at Leland and Gray right now.
Yeah, I don't know if she also mentioned it, but the girls' soccer team came in first place for the SVL, which is the Southern Vermont League. So that was pretty cool. And we also have other incoming events. We have a band and chorus concert, which is November, Peter, what is it?
16th.
16th. And we also have the musical, which is Mamma Mia, which is
I believe it's the 11th, 12th, and 13th.
Yes.
It's the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of the second week in November.
yes. Yeah, I'm good.
I wasn't sure if there was any more. That's it?
I'm really bad at dates. So.
That's okay. Thanks for filling in the blanks, Peter.
Yep.
Wow, sounds like a lot of exciting things. Appreciate the reports. Thank you, folks. All right, so, but I do want to mention also, besides being the SVL champs, they're number 2 in the state. So that is pretty amazing. All right, Long-Term Planning Committee update.
Very good.
So I guess I can take that since Drew's not here. So since Should I give a background again? I feel like I should give the background one more time. Like,
Yeah,
let's do this one
please.
more time. Okay. So this board has been discussing long-term planning for a lot of years. And we keep coming back every year, every budget season to, wow, we can't do this one again. We can't do this again, every year for many, many years. And so starting, pre-COVID, we started looking more in depth at every possible option we could think of. And when we decided we couldn't really move forward with those conversations because we needed to focus our efforts on life with COVID and what that meant. So we sort of paused where we were with that. And starting, was it April?
Yeah.
Last April, we formed this committee to basically start investigating this again so that hopefully by budget season, we wouldn't be saying, we can't do this again. So the Long-Term Planning Committee has been meeting weekly since last April, and sometimes our meetings are very long, and we are basically tasked with going down every rabbit hole that we can come up with so that the whole board does not have to do that. So basically our weekly meetings are sort of work sessions where we have all of the difficult conversations and where we sort of look at every idea and we ask each other all the good questions and the bad questions, and we basically figure out how far down the rabbit hole we can go. So that's sort of what our weekly meetings are. And then we bring all of that conversation and all of that work that we do throughout the month to the rest of the board. So all decisions that are going to be made on all long-term planning things will be happening in these meetings because the entire board is choosing what is happening with this district, right? The whole board gets a vote. So I know there's been a lot of concern about, we had that conversation about accessibility earlier, and we've had a lot of correspondence in all of the ways about accessibility. And I just want to reassure people that we're trying to be as open as possible, but that a lot of the, especially up to this point, a lot of the rabbit holes that we're diving down don't really lend themselves to Zoom conversations. And the reason that isn't because we're trying to like hide what we're talking about, but mostly that I think if somebody catches just a snippet of our conversation, that can be very misleading because we really are having like, yeah, we think this is a terrible idea. Let's talk about it for an hour. Like, because we need to really be sure it's a terrible idea. Or we think this is a great idea and we don't know until 2 hours in that maybe it's not. So a lot of that sort of nitty-gritty work is hard to convey when somebody just tunes in for a little piece. That being said, we have taken a bigger effort on trying to make sure that our website, which is the westrivered.org, you can click on the future planning link right at the top, and we have been trying to make sure that all of the documents and anything that we've been talking about, all of the past work is somehow available in that. And we may be missing some things still, but we're actively trying to keep that as full as possible and as up to date as possible. So the last time that we presented to the whole board, we got the go-ahead to consider what a one campus model could look like, and would it even be something that would, with an immersive learning component, what could that look like, and could it even possibly be affordable? Because the financial piece was huge, and we hadn't had that conversation at all yet. We're looking at coming up with the best education first, and then how can we also, like, okay, then we'll have a financial conversation second. So I guess we can jump into, I think everybody on the board at least has this A-B comparison, which basically, while we have, the long-term planning committee does not feel confident yet in saying exactly what a one-campus model would look like, because we just think we need to keep diving down that rabbit hole a little further. But the financial part with a one-campus model with immersive learning should work. It looks like we can do this for cost neutral. So we can, what we anticipate spending in fiscal year 23 versus what we could be spending in fiscal year 23 with a one-campus immersive learning model is cost neutral. So that was really wonderful, and thank you for all of that work. Yes.
You're welcome. Can I just jump in and say cost neutral in terms of the operation?
Operation, yes.
Does not include capital
Right.
investment.
Right, not the initial, whatever initial investment would need to be.
The build out.
Right, the build up.
Yeah, I just want to be clear on that.
And there were some things which are listed here that weren't included. The Journey East position.
Correct.
And other assumptions that weren't quite figured in. So I mean, even though this gives you a brief look at the financials, it's not the total end, total. There was some new information brought up by Greg Frost that we weren't taking into account, kind of a surprise hit. One of it being sewer. And that is something that we need more time to look into. I know it's getting crunch time, but this isn't something we can jump into. The timeline for the immersive part is a 3 to 5, Bill?
Yep.
3 to 5 year. It's not an overnight thing. So I'd like to address some of the things, the concerns that were brought up. If there's a concern about minute taking, then I would suggest maybe we get a professional minute taker. Because I'm the one that's taking the minutes, and I'm not a professional minute taker.
It's hard to
Data,
participate.
I'm not either.
And it's hard to participate
And take minutes.
and take minutes. And I'm really bad at it. So if
So
that's
Bill, you
something
wanna?
we could figure
Bill's got
out. As far as the timeline with the meetings, it's been basically based around what's convenient for the four of us. One of our members, as we all know, is on Operation Jab with the boosters and the shots and stuff, and it's hard to match times to catch him. And so I apologize for the early, but our lives are dictating this timeline for us to work. We were kind of under the assumption that this was a working committee, and we can't work if we're not there, or can't be there. And I want to apologize to everybody out there, for the last minute meeting changes and stuff, but it's the best we can do for the four of us to get together.
But also
Yeah.
I just want everyone to really remember though, nothing is going to come up in our committee meetings of relevance that is not brought to the board. Because like I said earlier, the whole board is part of the decision process here, and everybody gets a vote. And so if somebody's just looking for updates on what's going on, I think that the board itself should hopefully be the most informed. And as long as the public knows what is happening, that it knows what the board knows, they will know what is happening. And if somebody's looking to get, like, I'm really interested in, I would like to dive down the rabbit holes and see what all of the conversations are. Yes, please, we would love that. It is time consuming to take every single meeting, giving, an hour's worth of how we got here, which I feel like we have been doing, and I'm happy to do it, but it's also really hard to then also get the conversations in that need to happen. It is a lot of work, and we're happy to do it. But we're running out of like hours in the day.
If I could know, when we first started this, it's okay, we're gonna meet once a week for no more than an hour.
Yeah.
That went out the window like 3 meetings in. You know, sometimes we're there for 4 or more hours, depending on the work that needs to be completed that week, especially if we're on a roll with ideas that we want to finish thinking out.
Right, right. So it sounds like we'll address the minute taker.
The Zoom part
Yeah.
is, I mean, I know it'd be great for everybody, but when the 4 of us get going, we won't see hands. You'll
minute
just
taker
be,
could monitor.
you'll be observing. We won't really be paying attention to the laptops.
Well, that's going to be the responsibility of any
Yeah,
meeting, so
yeah, I know.
we'll have to pay attention.
We'll have to figure that one out.
Yeah, yep. So that kind of addresses 2 out of the 3. And then,
Yeah, we could do that. We were doing that. Drew was bringing that up. But then we got into these long work sessions, everybody left by the time.
And then everybody can,
right,
just in case there's any that, like Lindsay brought up the part about taking out of context, if the Zoom's recorded, then it's there for everybody.
yeah. Any possibility it could move a little later? 6? No?
At this, not that we can commit to tonight.
Okay.
We will work towards trying to, it's really difficult every week, and we all have families, and we're all still coming to these meetings, and we're all still doing our other volunteer positions, and working, and trying to do life. So it is a huge time commitment, and, but yes, we will look at it, and maybe we can, especially as we get going, maybe when we're not necessarily needing a 4-hour-long meeting once a week. Because when you start that any later than 5, it gets real hard.
Right.
I would suggest you guys put a time limit on your meetings.
I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
change the amount of work that needs to get done.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
You-
that's
you-
true.
'cause
Drew.
Oh,
Oh, Drew's here. Hey, Drew.
Is that true?
I saw Katie under
He said-
Katie earlier, so I'm pretty sure it's true.
All right, so thank
So-
you for kind of.
I'm here.
Hey, Drew. So thanks for kind of addressing those kind of 3 main points coming out of the letters that we received. That's super helpful. I think probably next would be a good kind of explanation of the different options that you came up with. And then probably after that, we could get into first board questions, and then we can move it to the audience.
so the,
Al?
Yeah, go ahead, Drew.
Can I go over here for a second?
Yeah, sure.
I guess the point I'd like to make before we even get into this conversation is the word options is really bad.
yes.
So the phrase options should be kind of taken out of this conversation. These are ideas. When we put it out as options, people think you're making a choice between one and the other. And like Lindsay described, this is nothing more than rabbit holes that we're chasing. So I don't want this to appear to the board or to the public like this is a one or the other, because the outcome will likely be neither. As we work through the discussion, like Dana and Lindsay have described, and we get more information, we're going to continue to have new ideas and new information. And I guess calling them options makes it feel like there's a final product, and we're nowhere near a final product. So I prefer we not refer to them as options, but simply ideas.
Drew, I think that's a very fair point. Yeah, so let's call them idea 1 and idea 2.
So the
Greg,
I'll
did
take credit for that one. I apologize. I also jumped down some rabbit holes in trying to flesh this out for them and had numerous variations of things going on, just trying to fit everything. And so I'm the one that wrote the option in there, so I apologize for that. My bad.
Yeah, that's okay. It's a normal word to use in a situation like this, yeah. Understood. All right.
So our goal at this point is to come up with a one-campus solution that includes immersive learning. That is our goal. After a huge amount of conversations and looking at all of the things that we could possibly do, that solution with one campus that includes immersive learning seems to check the most number of boxes in that it will allow for multiple classrooms per grade within the same building. And I don't know if any of the administrators want to talk about why these things are so good, but these are the things that they have told us are so good and we believe them. So having 2 classrooms per grade, it would allow us to remove siloing from, siloing, okay. I shouldn't use that word, nobody knows what I'm talking about.
Centralized.
So that we feel like the one community we are. So we do not feel like I belong to this school and you belong to this school, and I'm gonna do me and you do you. And that's okay, and we'll just do our own thing. Because the reality is, we are all responsible for each other here. We are one district, all of our kids belong to this whole district, and until we start treating every student really the same, we're not doing our job. And so we need to provide the best education that we can to the whole district. So one campus, including immersive learning, would also, the immersive learning is the hands-on component. It is the expansion in our mind of what Journey East has been to this community. We have heard nonstop over the years about how wonderful that program is and how life-changing it is. And we want that type of experience for every student. And we think that it will make our district special, and we think that it will make our students want to come to school and want to learn. So we've looked at currently 2 sort of variations of what that could look like. It does not mean that is exactly what it's going to look like, to reiterate what Drew said. The first one included K through 4 in the current Townsend Elementary building, and 5 through 8 as the middle school, and 9 through 12 as the high school in this building, Leland and Gray building. That was our sort of first deep dive, and we came up to the conclusion that there was some septic issues that we were not aware of, and once that got brought to our attention, that limited the capacity as is in the Townsend building.
Potential sewer.
So we said, okay, well, if that's a reasonably big price tag, I believe the super ballpark number was, what was it?
$250,000.
So that was the ballpark. We haven't actually had anybody look at this, but let's talk to somebody who might know, okay? So we said, okay, well, if that's gonna be a big price tag, then maybe what else could we do? And the physical capacity exists in this building, and so we asked Greg to give a look and tell us what could that look like if we were to move additional students into this building. So in an effort to keep the teaching grade bands together, which is something that we've heard quite a bit about from our administrators and our staff, is something that they feel really strongly about, we decided that let's just look at what if it is the whole 3 through 5 band that moves to this building. So we gave Greg not nearly enough time to come up with a way to make that happen, and he did a wonderful job. And we looked at the possibility of basically making the A level be for the younger grades, so it would end up being 3 through 6 fully. The 7th and 8th graders most likely would stay on A level. There's a potential that, depending on how we worked it out, obviously this is very early on, none of these things are real yet, that middle schoolers may be on B level with the high school a little bit, but that those things would be, either way, A level and B level, very separate. There would be a tiny bit of crossover as there currently exists with the middle school and the high school, however, not with, it's more with spaces, and it's not with humans. So the high schoolers and the middle schoolers right now change their schedules at different times, so they're not in the hall at the same time. There's a pretty reasonable separation. So we looked at, okay, maybe that could be a possibility. It may include the possibility of purchasing an additional chunk of land that's available that we could use for playground. So we looked at all of these things, and we basically came to the conclusion that we don't know at all what to do now, because now we've talked about 2 whole new different things, and we need to have a lot more conversations about it. So we basically ended up deciding we are maybe further into the rabbit hole than we've been, but we're pretty darn sure it's going to pop us out somewhere, and it's going to be a real answer. But I don't know that we're at the real answer yet. I don't know if Drew feels like he has anything to add to that.
You did a great job. That was wonderful.
So Lindsay, quick question. So do we have 2 ideas, or are we down to that one idea?
Our current notion at the moment is, how are we going to make one campus with immersive learning? And we're trying to come up with ways to do that. And exactly what that looks like, we don't know yet.
Okay, so the 2 ideas.
The 2 ideas.
That are presented here are
ideas that we are looking at, and neither of them are nearly well developed enough to be options. How's that?
Okay, well developed enough?
I mean, who knows? We need to talk about it. We need to see what it means. We know that space-wise, we can put bodies in the buildings. We know that financially, we can do this for a cost-neutral operation. We know that we can physically do it. We don't know if it's either of these things is the best thing, is the right thing. Right. We haven't had enough time to flesh that out in any real way, because all of this has happened in the last 2-3 weeks.
I think 3 weeks ago we found out about the septic issue.
So it just, I mean, I don't know that that's the sort of thing that you can have a plan in that little amount of time.
And the staff and administration had brought concerns to us that we had to hash out.
There's been concerns from the administration about if we did 3 through 5, that it feels crowded. And we've also had concerns, well, if we do it in the elementary school, yeah, it looks like the bodies can fit, but we're not sure if it feels comfortable. But we don't really know. And it may be one of these things eventually, or it may be neither of these things eventually, but the goal is still the same. And we're actively working towards making one campus with immersive learning, because we think that that's going to provide the best education.
Okay, so at this point, using your words, you found out what is possible, looked at the possibilities, what's physically possible, and now is the time in which we engage our community, probably our principals, administration, teachers, etc., to see if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, then to look to another direction or push things out. That's likely what we're going to have to do, right? Okay, so you've come up with an idea, fleshed it out to the best of your ability, and best of Lori's ability. And now it's really just trying to understand, is that really what works for school, community, etc.? Is that fair?
So, Al, can I jump in for a quick sec?
Yeah, sure.
So, I think yes and no. So I think we need a little bit more time before we need to answer more questions before we're really ready to kind of pick a direction to kind of push in. The administrators got, I think, each maybe 5 minutes to talk to us about their thoughts and concerns about the ideas last week. And certainly, after you've listened to our administrators, and you can't process that information instantly. We need to think about that. We want to talk to them again. It raises more questions. So I don't think we're quite as far as you're describing. I think, and the rest of the committee can certainly correct me if they feel like we're further along, but I think we need a little bit more time before we're ready to say we've got a product that we want to like go seek public input on right now. I think we need to kind of settle on our information a little bit more. We've got more questions we need answered, and then we'll be ready to move to that next step. But I don't think we're quite there yet.
Okay, well,
Could I ask a clarifying question?
yeah, sure, go ahead.
On letter A, I won't say option, it says as is, does that include an immersive learning center?
No, as is
Okay.
is
That's just
what we're doing right
steady
now.
state, no
If we
changes.
do exactly what we're
Okay.
doing right now, next year.
Got it.
Is that correct, Lori?
Okay. All right.
And if all the equalized people stay the same.
So just to be clear, that is already flushed out, right?
So what does
Well,
that?
yeah.
Okay, wait, well, time out. Okay. Are you folks all set? Can we open it up to board questions at this point?
Sure.
You sure? Sure you all set?
Yep.
Okay,
Good.
all right. Mike, and then Ken, you had a question too?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
Mike and Ken.
I just want to point out, not to throw another thing at you guys, but my understanding is the land next to LNG sold 10 days ago.
All right, of course it did.
So just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. More info.
Go ahead, Ken.
That's it
Okay.
for now.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, all right, so on this A assumption here, it says, does not include Jamaica Elementary position. Can somebody clarify that? Because if it is as is,
It's Journey.
Journey East.
oh, it's Journey East, okay. So that doesn't include Journey East. So does assumption B include Journey East?
No, I don't
No.
know.
So neither one of them does, so it shouldn't be a counterpoint on either one, in my opinion. As for the property thing as well, if it was taxable land that comes in as taxes to the town, I don't think the town would let you have it anyway. So that whole issue of building a playground, on buying property to build a playground and move the equipment from another playground that pre-exists, kind of seems mute. That it's like, we already have a playground that has equipment on it that could, which I'm talking about Newbrook, instead of trying to purchase property and build just because you want a majority of the students in Townsend. When you can still have a majority of your students in Townsend, just at different age groups. If you keep a centralized pre-K up here and keep the other kids down in Newbrook and use the Jamaica for the immersive learning, which the immersive learning is so vague that I'm gonna have to put you on the spot here, because you used the example, correct me if I'm wrong, at the update at the WCSU meeting, it was either welding or plumbing was gonna be done at the Immersive Learning Center.
Those two words did not come out of my mouth.
I think we ought to check the videotape. Okay, because it was either like plumbing or welding that was gonna be going on up there. As an example, this could be, I'm not saying that you were, but, so that's how vague that is, the information that even board members are having ideas of, which, I think that would come under the career center that we're in contact with. But I think we really need to check this stuff out. Also, we also have the, originally when this whole thing started, of joining all the towns together, one big school district, we're all in this together, was we're gonna keep our individual cultures and the ways of doing things in these cultures, because these are important to us. And now you're taking these individual cultures and you're ripping them apart and throwing them up in the air and saying, well, this is going to go over there, this is going to go over there, and that's going to go over there. And we're all going to do this And then I was reading on the website something about how we're gonna save money, okay? Our taxpayers have been, especially in Newfane and Brookline, have been shown how much we save taxes by, okay, merging and doing what everybody else wants, which was Newfane constantly's taxes are up, 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 until we're all equal again, okay? And, you know, the reason that Newfane and Brookline had the lowest cost per pupil out of the elementary schools was for one simple reason. We didn't duplicate what we had. We used what we had, and we worked with it and off of it. We didn't say, okay, well, we have these books over here, so we're gonna go out and buy new books over here and use those for something else. Okay? You use what you have to rebuild something. You don't tear apart what you have and then buy what you already have just to move what you already have somewhere else.
All right, Ken, we're gonna have a lot of questions tonight,
Okay,
so I'm gonna-
but in my 15 years of being on the board, the worst decision I ever made was not standing up at the last meeting and saying, I do not support this and these are the reasons why. But I waited to see what would happen. And within the last month, I've seen what happened and it's just getting worse.
Okay, Ken.
And I'm done.
You do understand that we're calling these ideas now?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm just...
No, I get it.
Okay, because we're going against everything that this board originally started with.
Yep, so just a couple things on comments you made. So it does not include Journey East position, that's on both of them, and that's, I understand.
But the second one does include the immersive
Something that you
learning.
need to factor, I think, is why it's there.
Right, but Lori's gonna put that in there because it's not a decision that's been made, so
Right.
in her fiduciary responsibilities.
To this
has
total
point
number.
that out. So, that's that point. Moving on to you, Howie.
Yes, I was the one person who voted to not proceed with this plan. I am going to pass out to the board a little handout here, which is the Vermont Constitution Education Clause, and a piece of the Brigham decision, which explains what the word ought means. So the relevant, the Constitution says a competent number of schools ought to be maintained in each town, not each county, not each supervisory union. Each town ought to have a school, okay? By putting all the kids in Townsend, we give the kids in Townsend, who are not going to be able to walk to school, which would be very nice for them, quite an advantage over the kids who are living way south in Newfane and way north in Jamaica, who are going to be on the bus for an hour and a half back and forth to Townsend every day. There's no equity here. I mean, I see, when I pull up to this school board meeting, I see everybody's, pulled up in their nice shiny SUVs. We all have nice cars with four-wheel drive and studded snow tires in the winter. What about the kids, parents who are struggling, who can't afford to drive their kids back and forth for long distances to after-school events? Okay, there's no equity in this plan. You can compare this to something like Floodbrook maybe, but Floodbrook built a new campus where every kid had to take a bus to school. Not some kids get to walk to school and the rest of the kids have long bus rides. I mean, how does this affect property values in the towns that now are going to lose their schools? Why would a parent buy a house in Newfane or Jamaica when they know they're going to have to bus their kids to Townsend? Okay, the Vermont Constitution was very clear. Okay, it was set up so we wouldn't have to go through this discussion. It was very clear in plain English, says a competent number of schools in each town. It doesn't say there has to be a certain number of kids. It doesn't say it needs to be convenient for the teachers and the superintendents. It says there needs to be schools in each town. It doesn't say every kid needs to get an education. It says there needs to be a school in each town. And we are the agents. This board is responsible for maintaining a school in each town. And honestly, it's really done a bad job of it. It's really, the policies of this board has weakened the Jamaica Elementary School by opening up the school choice thing, which was, a great selling point for this district to have school choice, but now What happened to school choice? We don't seem to care about school choice anymore because there will be no more school choice. Every kid's going to go to Townsend. So I suspect that there's going to be enormous community pushback against this plan to close our schools. This idea that our current system, which is a school in each town, which we've had for hundreds of years in Vermont, is somehow unsustainable suddenly, just doesn't jive with me. Okay, the kids in elementary schools need a good teacher close to home in a safe environment. They don't need to be bused 20 miles down the road to go sit in a crowded classroom. The whole thing doesn't make sense. So that is why I oppose this plan, and I'm just going to continue to oppose it. So that's my piece.
Okay, thanks, Al.
Al, Leanne wanted to.
Yeah,
Can I just make one clarifying point, because it's starting to irritate me just a little bit. Everyone keeps saying, and how you've brought it up, I've heard it from Dana a few times, he knows this. He keeps talking about not having a school in their town. Brookline, as small as it is a town. Brookline does not have its own separate school.
They should.
That's the only point I wanted to put in there.
Yeah, they should have their own separate school. That was a tragic mistake as far as I'm concerned with Brookline European School.
All right, any other?
I would also just like to clarify,
Sure.
just for the community to understand that we're not talking about a 20-mile, hour-and-a-half drive, that is a 10-minute bus ride between the two. So anybody who is currently going to Newbrook, it is 10 minutes further to get to Townsend. And anyone who is coming into, from Jamaica, we're looking at, I believe it's 12 minutes maybe. So it's a 10 to 12 minute difference. We're not talking about an hour and a half. I just don't want the public to feel like we haven't considered that.
The folks who are on the furthest south end of our district and the furthest north end of our district, they're going to have a hell of a long
It is 10 minutes further than the current school they are attending that you are asking them to keep.
Okay, and what is the current commute they're doing that you're adding 10 minutes to? You're not talking about just a 10-minute commute, you're talking about adding 10 minutes to an already 30-minute commute. Okay, so now your 30-minute commute has gone to 40 minutes.
Okay. Anybody else on the board out in Zoom land? No?
Quick comment, Al?
Yeah, sure.
So I would like to remind the board and the public that once our children in our district hit 6th grade, they're making that trip. They've been making that trip, 7 through 12 for many years, and in the last couple of years, the 6th graders as well. So I know we like to, we want to look at it and determine that, that extra 10 minutes is, life and death. And I know you want to look at it and say that families are not going to be willing to come down to the center of Townsend at the end, in the kind of the final years of their educational experience in our district. Townsend is the central location. Townsend is where we hold all of our elementary school sports games, including soccer on the fields behind Leland and Gray, including basketball in the Dutton. It's where the events happen in our district. So utilizing Townsend as the center of our education district makes sense, because that is where the center of our education district has been for as long as Leland and Gray has been functioning. So it's nothing new for families. In fact, it's an expectation when you live in the West River Valley that you are going to be driving to Townsend to pick up your middle school and high school kids. And I can tell you, as one of the furthest parents from the center, we do it a lot. And we know that. We knew that when we bought our house. And it does not affect property values. A high quality education is what's going to affect property values. So the Immersive Learning Center and a world-class education system in our district is going to mean more than the extra 10 minutes of driving.
Thanks, Drew.
Okay. So I guess the concern about the central campus model kind of begs the question, is it necessary to have a one campus model, a single campus model, in order to have an immersive learning center? could they be decoupled?
Not
I just
without
don't
a-
know the answer.
If they are decoupled, there's a significant cost increase
You will pay dearly.
Got it.
How so?
because additional administration costs.
By,
If we are maintaining the same level of buildings that we have now, there'd be additional administration costs?
If you go to one campus, you reduce an administrator.
Oh,
If you
okay.
run the same, you have the same amount of administrators.
So the option, or the idea A is with the reduced admin, is
A is-
as now, is as
No
now, so
changes.
that's with the extra administrator.
So where it
That's
says,
the current
The
staff.
current staff.
Current staffing.
Well, I kind of beg to differ on that because now you're going to have a program coordinator for the Immersive Learning Center, no? Versus a principal.
that's.
Therefore, you're not, you have another administrator just with a different title. Okay, let's be real.
That's
No, no,
it.
it's just different responsibilities.
Right.
And it's very different.
It's different responsibilities, but it's still the same amount of administration, just different titles.
Different
Right, you
pay
can,
level,
the point is you
too.
can't run, the question was, can you run them both? Can you do what we're doing now and also run immersive learning? And the question, that was the question, and the answer was not for the same cost. This cost neutral assumptions are based, only work in a one campus model, not when you try to run multiple campuses.
All right.
Would there
okay,
not
Mike,
be
you put
some
us-
savings?
Sorry, we need to go from one person to the other and raise hands, please. Mike raised his hand, next question, and go from there.
All right, so kind of piggybacking on what you were saying, because I had thought about that too, and I was like, maybe the immersive learning part could move around to the different buildings we have, assuming that we were going to do something like that. For me, one of the things I'm struggling with is there's going to be an investment made to achieve this hopeful, operational neutral position. There's going to be a significant investment. So I automatically think, what else could we do with that if we weren't applying it in this way? So how could we, is there a way to invest that same amount of money into our current structure to promote long-term viability? Because that's the goal to me, is long-term viability. So that's my question. If we're gonna spend that money there, we're giving up something. I would like to know what we're giving up, because I would think that the administration would have had ideas for that money of other ways they could apply it.
Keeping in mind that that is one-time money, though.
It's one time,
just to
but it's
clarify, yeah.
significant.
Mhm.
That's all.
Thanks.
All right, any more
You
board?
have Emily
questions?
Long in Zoom.
Go ahead, Emily.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for allowing me on here through Zoom tonight. I just wanted to sort of see if I could summarize my what I'm hearing. And from what I'm hearing from the Long-Range Planning Committee is that there's still some work to do. And if that's so, I think that we're not probably heading for a vote tonight on what direction we're going. I have felt pretty strongly in support of any long-range planning. I've always been in support of long-range planning. To me, long-range planning requires deep dive with our communities and our stakeholders. And I've heard some comments tonight that concerns me quite a bit, that we haven't engaged our stakeholders or our members of the public as effectively as we should be doing for every subcommittee of the board. It's my belief that we should be seeking public and stakeholder input through every stage of a process, especially long-term planning. So I appreciate the fact that sounds like there's going to be a change in how we are engaging the public and stakeholders in this process. What I want to be able to do tonight is to hear from the many people who are here who want to share their thoughts. And so I think we're probably at that stage in the process, and I hope that we can move forward with listening to those folks.
Thanks, Emily. All right, and with that, yes, let's switch over to our public. And Patty, right off the bat. Yeah, go ahead.
You know, I've been,
Patty, would you do exactly what you did the first time,
Oh.
just as a role
Yes.
model?
Yep,
Thank you.
thank you. My name's Patty Dixon. I am a Jamaica resident. I was a battler against Jamaica closing. I did not want to see it happen. I was totally against anything that would close Jamaica School. But I also realized that things weren't working the way they were. For some reason, a good part of Jamaica students go somewhere else to school. And how do we fix that? And when I first started going to these meetings, the long-term planning meetings, and they came up with this brave new idea, I was like, wow, that would be so cool. And who around this area has done anything this brave, this different, this amazing? And it just hasn't happened, and I just think it's worth a shot. You know, it's worth the deep dives. It may be determined that, no, this isn't really gonna work, but I just think it's hopeful. It brings hope, and if you have hope, you can just make it work. I think it has amazing possibilities.
Thanks, Ben. Go ahead, Peter.
Hi, I'm Peter Broussard. I am a Newfane resident and a senior at Leland and Gray, a 12th grader. I'd say my biggest question / comment is this is a long-term planning committee for these schools. The school's job is to give the best education possible to the students. So a two-part question of sorts. Is there any sort of student input, seeing as how this would be directly affecting the students? And also, I would ask in that, is everyone taking into account that this is to, in fact, give the students the best education? Well, this may seem a little, for lack of a better word, selfish for my generation. I do ask, is the point of a school board to worry about all the adults? Is it to say, oh, how will this affect the adults and their lives? When in fact, should it be, how will this affect the students and their education? And I would hope that that this plan would be, in fact, to have a positive impact, if possible, a proven positive impact on student education. I would like to bring up the Brookline no longer having a school. I have many friends that went to Brookline in its last year and then went to Newbrook, and most of them are thankful. They got to have more friends, more opportunities, and better resources at Newbrook than they ever could have had at Brookline.
Thanks, Peter.
I have my hand up.
I believe that was
Clara.
Clara, sorry.
Yeah, right. Yes. My question to the committee is, you talk about immersion. I need you to really tell us what that means to you. You partner with it with Journey East several times, which is not Journey East, is not the program that Journey East was. That's a totally different program run by a totally different set of people from the University of Vermont and etc. So tell me to you can talk about that it'll be this center, but you need to flesh that out for the people in Jamaica and tell us what that means. Not that I don't think it's a good idea. I think you need to tell us what that is. And not how much it costs, but what is it? Not, I heard somebody say, well, somebody brought up welding, which I'm sure that wasn't so. But I don't mean that you lied or anything, but it's just, what does that mean to you? What does it look like to you?
So, I'll give you just sort of a brief answer to it, is that, so what the full vision is, I mean, we have not designed exactly what immersive learning is down to the nitty gritty, partly because we know the implementation of that is longer term than what we need to make more immediate decisions about sort of what the rest of the stuff is going to look like, because we are not just doing immersive learning. That being said, I know, as you had mentioned, it started for us in a lot of conversations about Journey East, and what that physically is to us is students fully diving in hands-on into something they are passionate about. It is having resources available to them and somebody to guide them through this. It's not just saying, oh, you want to be immersed in Spanish, okay, here's a ticket, bye, go to Spain, good luck. We want to provide a space and guidance for students to find their own passions. And so whether that means doing some cultural study thing where they're, you know, using their languages and they're learning about different world cultures and possibly traveling. It could be something that has to do with environmental science, and their interest is in the world around them, and they want to go out into the world. And that's actually one of the reasons that we had looked at Jamaica, because it provides, with its proximity to the state park, it provides the ability to go into the world and into the woods and really get hands-on. So I can't tell you what does the day look like per se. I can't tell you because we have not designed this. We're looking. We've had our administrators looking at similar type programs in Vermont and other areas, and we expect to develop that more fully once we have the bandwidth for that. That being said, it includes resources, guidance, fully hands-on, bodies involved. And that's sort of the, I guess, as brief as I can do it.
I guess the point is, from me, is that that's been your selling point. And I just heard Patty talk about it and how exciting people were about it and so on and so forth. If it's going to be a selling point, you're going to need to have more to sell it. I mean, you need to know more about what it's going to be. And, you know, if you've got access to other communities that have done this, you need to get that into your plans, because this is something people need to know. And this is the question that not just myself is asking, but a number of people in my community are asking, what's that going to look like? And you're saying you don't know. I don't know how you're going to get people to be on board for it.
Thanks.
Just.
Thanks, Claire. Bill? I see
You've
many
got
hands.
4 in a row on Zoom. You might want to just toggle back and forth, but Lindsay would be your next one on Zoom.
Okay.
Not Lindsay in person.
Okay. Go ahead, Lindsay.
I'm sorry, did you mean me on Zoom or Lindsay
Yes.
there?
You on Zoom, I apologize. Yes,
Okay, sorry about that. I mean, really actually wanted to kind of echo what Clara was just saying there. You know, before, when someone mentioned the uncoupling of the Immersive Learning Center with the one campus model, I feel like that really resonates with me. You know, I feel like that is something that we should propose maybe further considering, to decouple that idea of the Immersive Learning Center with the one campus model. And more specifically, I mean, I say that more specifically with the elimination of that one administrator salary. To me, what it feels like, and I think it feels like to a lot of people, is just kind of what Claire was saying, is that what we're saying is, in order to get this immersive learning center, all of this other stuff needs to happen. And we can't really figure out a plan that's really working right now for all this other stuff. But this immersive learning center is going to be really great. And specifically hearing, even though that was, something that I think I had assumed anyways, but it is connected to that idea of we need to cut this one salary in order to make that happen. I love the idea of pursuing and being part of and, getting excited about and getting creative around this idea of creating an immersive learning center. I do, strongly believe that the cost of having an entire building to fuel that is not the only way to do it, but that's something I could get really excited about separately. What I'm having such a hard time with is, again, saying this wonderful thing that we can't say a lot about, we don't really know a lot about right now, and again, not necessarily comparing that with what could be something that could be done that fuels that students' passions, learning, individualism, preparing them in these immersive ways. Being able to do that without the physical presence of a building is something that I feel like is important. And I hear you saying that it's without that cut of the salary, it would be a lot more expensive, but it just feels like it should be a separate conversation, and that because we're tying these two things together, what's getting lost is the well-being of the students. The decisions that we're making, again, particularly to our elementary students, who I just don't feel like, based on the feedback that I'm hearing, there's enough benefits to benefit those elementary age students that make this make sense to me. I also just wanted to comment, with the long-term committee meetings and hearing that there's some concerns as far as people being able to participate in those meetings. If it's possible just to simply record the meetings and then to have those be shared, so that way it's not impeding on anybody's being pulled out of the conversation, but it still enables people to at least hear that content. And then I guess the last thing that I want to touch on is the timeline that I see is tentative that's shared on the agenda. Was talking about something happening in November, the potential budget vote happening in mid-March. I just need some clarification. I know the last meeting we spoke of focus groups. It was in the Reformer, talking about how you all plan to engage the community and potentially doing those focus groups. Where does that happen in this timeline? And again, it sounds like everything has kind of changed and that this is an idea and not an option at this point, but I would just, like to kind of get a better understanding of if there is something to be voted on by the board, does that happen in December? And then, in which case the focus groups would happen before then. I don't understand that. And as a community member, it would be really helpful to just know what to expect.
Thanks, Lindsay. Great questions, great comments. Before we move on, I just wanted to mention, you may have missed the first part when we were talking about kind of enhancements to the upcoming meetings, like having a minute taker, opening it up to Zoom, and then they're also potentially going to look at maybe pushing the time a little bit, maybe not, but they'll look at their timelines just to see. So that would be for the upcoming long-term planning meetings in order to afford more visibility into the meetings. So that
I think that'd be wonderful. I heard some resistance and essentially saying, no, we couldn't do that, and so I was just putting out as a suggestion, if that really is the case, at a minimum, being able to press a button and record it might be something. But I would love if all those things happen, and thank you for resharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Dana will not be the minute taker. He's already said that, but we'll find somebody else.
We'll figure out the Zoom.
And I just want to take just a really quick second to follow up that we really, really, really want to have these sort of coffee talks, or however this is going to work out, or sort of small group conversations with the community, because I really think that is the best way that somebody can share concerns with us and we can answer their questions one-on-one, where we can really look each other in the eye and understand what everyone means. And we were really hoping to be at the point where we could be doing that already. Unfortunately, we're not quite there yet. We just don't know yet how how to move forward. So that is definitely on the radar, and we really, really are looking forward to having those.
And Lindsay, would you say that you have been responsive, if I have asked, not in that you've given me, a date, but can I ask you? Because that's another thing is when I've, trying to look for just an answer to a direct question, hearing again that in the long-term meetings themselves, like not being able to participate in Zoom. I think, Drew, you made a really good point of saying like, you can't process information on the spot. That's just how I feel as a community member is that, before that next board meeting, I want to have a good understanding about what I'm supposed to be sharing my opinion about, versus finding that out in the meeting and then being expected to come up with my comments or change my feedback because the structure is completely changed, so I just, I know I have shared that with you as well, but just trying to figure out when those focus groups are going to happen within the time frame and how can we check in about that versus having to wait until the next board meeting.
Okay, yes. Thank you. I don't have specific answers, but I do really appreciate it, and I do look forward to continuing our conversations. We're going to have that cup of coffee one of these days.
Okay.
Thanks, Lindsay. Sorry.
Karen Amadon, Jamaica. Having been to almost all of the meetings since April with this long-term planning committee, I would say they've been very open, and we could ask any questions and throw our ideas out there to them. And the meetings have been open to the public, and it's been announced every week, so anyone could have gone. I know they probably would have appreciated a few educators there or administrators to bounce questions and answers off of at the time. But they've done a spectacular job, and from the very beginning, their question has been, how do we best educate these children? How do we give them the best education they can possibly have here? And I think they've worked very hard at this. Jamaica, years ago, had 14 school districts just in Jamaica. And all these other towns around had similar school districts. And I imagine at the time when they condensed to one school, they probably had very similar conversations to what we're having right now. But that was done for progress and to give these children a better education back then. And that's what these guys are doing. And I think we all have to step back and try to figure out how best to educate our kids. I would love to have Jamaica School the same as it was 20 years ago. When my kids came here, the teachers were saying, the kids coming from Jamaica School are the best prepared kids coming into Leland and Gray. And it was wonderful, but the number of students in the state of Vermont has gone down a lot. It's not just Jamaica or all of these towns, it's the whole state. So how do we now pull these kids together and give them the best education? So please, educators and administration, come to the meetings and give this long-term planning committee your ideas on how this can work. Maybe there's a whole other idea that is out there that you guys can provide. But the meetings are very open and they're willing to answer any questions. And anytime we call or email them, the response is right there. So you just have to do that. But it's everybody's responsibility, not just the long-term planning committee. So, thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Appreciate it. I'm just going to go back and forth. Sorry.
Yeah, Megan next.
Megan, thank you. Go ahead, Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan Coburn. I live in Jamaica. My son is a 4th grader at Jamaica Elementary School. I grew up going to Jamaica Elementary School. In fact, I grew up on the other side of Jamaica, closer to Stratton. Now I live in East Jamaica, but, I don't know. The bus ride is something that's definitely troubling to me, and I get that my son's in 4th grade, and this isn't really going to affect him for that much longer, but growing up in a small area, I understood that once we reached like middle high school, we were all going to be joined together. But I personally feel like it's a little unrealistic to expect of our elementary students. I mean, my son, I live in East Jamaica. I live 8 minutes from the school, and right now as it is, he has a 45-minute bus ride in the morning and in the afternoon. And to think of the person, you know, me being a kid that lived on the opposite side of Jamaica to have to travel all the way to Newbrook to go to school every day is kind of crazy. And I don't know. I don't think it's unrealistic. I get that you're saying it's only, like some people have said, it's only a 10 to 12 minute difference, but I don't see that at all. There are a couple more things, like, so for the long-term planning meetings that have been happening, I understand that it's been said that they're public and anyone's welcome to join, but I personally haven't seen anything about it, or it hasn't been brought to my attention that it was even open to the public or brought to our attention that we could be part of this process until this past week, which is why I'm here today, to be a part of this conversation and get as much information as I can. I definitely think that there are a lot of benefits to linking these schools together. But I think there's a lot of disadvantages too, and I just don't feel like it's been proven that they weigh out. And, you know, I definitely think there are way more questions than answers. And, you know, just saying, okay, so when children are in elementary school and playing their sports and stuff, and I'm not just talking about for games, I understand they hold a lot of games at Leland and Gray, but elementary school kids don't have nearly as many games as high school kids do. Once I played all of the sports when I was in elementary school, every single one. Once I reached high school, I had a mother that couldn't see well at night. It was a 25-minute trip each way to get to Leland and Gray, and I stopped playing every single sport at that point because it was just a hardship for my family. We didn't have a nice, reliable car, and I don't know, you know, so I couldn't even get to and from practices. It would be one thing if it was just a game or two, but I feel like there are a lot of things, a lot of balls that are going to be dropped. And, you know, I understand also this conversation of the Immersive Learning Center, but, you know, those things. So are we saying that right now, if our kids have interests in things like foreign languages or nature programs or any of that, that those options aren't available? I don't think that, and again, I'm more than willing to join this committee so I can hear more about the cost part of it, but I don't think that there is a single school around here that if one of our kids expressed a specific interest, that there isn't some sort of program or something available to help them do that. And I think a lot of those interests really develop once kids get older and hit middle school age anyway. So I think creating this to have this Immersive Learning Center, not that it wouldn't be great, I'm sure it would, but I don't feel like it should prioritize over our children spending insane amounts of time on the bus every morning and commuting. I don't know. I guess that's it.
Thank you, Megan. Appreciate it. All right, so we're just going to move back and forth between Zoom and out here, and you are next.
Okay. My name's Heather Sperling. I've been an educator at Newbrook for 17 years. My two eldest children were students at Brookline School. I've had two children who have done the Journey East program as well. So anyhow, I'm also the co-president of the WCEA, and so I have lots of hats here. So I'm going to try to just keep it to what I came here to say. But first of all, I appreciate all of your work, the Long-Term Planning Committee and all of the board and administration, and Lori. But I just wanted to, I wrote something out here and it also connects with what I've heard from other people here, that we really need all of the stakeholders at the table with this long-term planning. So moving forward, I'd just like to invite the Long-Term Planning Committee to have an advisory committee or, you know, an invited group of people, of stakeholders, including your in-house experts who are the educators, your employees who are professionals and continue to be informed and trained in best practices for teaching in order to help all of our students succeed. And, you know, our vision to have a world-class education system, as Drew said so well. There's, just a side note, there's a lot of immersion learning happening already in our schools. I know personally at Newbrook, we have forest learning, farm to school. There's a lot of structures in place. The gardens are amazing. We have an earth oven that we don't use enough, but having the support to do more immersion learning, place-based learning, would be excellent. I know that everybody would welcome that, community and educators, and administration, I'm sure. That's my theme song. So anyhow, you have a wealth of professional and place-based educators as employees. Your teachers and staff have all been and continue to be trained in best practices. So these people are in your schools every day. You know, they are working with students and families in each community and each building of every campus here. And we have a very complicated supervisory union, as you all know. We have multiple districts and it's really tricky. But I think it sounds like Long-Term Planning Committee, and I know you've been open to hearing perspectives from educators and everyone. I know you probably want that, but I think that you need to put that invitation there and maybe even intentionally seek a committee of, you know, people who work at each campus and each community to help you go down these rabbit holes, because I think that you're missing out on that wealth of knowledge. So, and I know that there are people who are willing to be there. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. And who's next?
Beth Merrill.
Beth.
Hello, everybody. I'm not showing my face because my hair's messy. I've been an educator in several districts for more than 30 years, a special educator and a behavior specialist. And I would just like to offer up a couple things. I did work in a school that was K through 12. So I would like to suggest that the Long Range Committee takes a look at those school districts throughout the whole state who've already done what you're talking about. They have a wealth of knowledge and it's already been invented. I live in a town where we closed Black River High School. And let me tell you, I was on the school board for doing that journey, and it's a lot of work. And it's definitely, the before and after is what you guys should look at, and how, even in Ludlow here, how people feel about after the school closed and stuff. So might I suggest that one of the things that, you know, that are such simple little things to think about are, you're sitting in a room right now that I think it looks like Leland Gray Library, is it?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
When you end up combining developmental ages 3 through 12, the library was one of the biggest disasters that I saw, because the children were, the little kids were walking up to books that were totally inappropriate and material. So just thinking of even just something little like that is something that other school districts have already done that journey. Like if you go and check out Windsor schools, the Windsor School is a K-12. Anyway, and also check out those schools that already have done what you're talking about doing. And the other piece that I would suggest is what Heather was just talking about, is getting the people right in the trenches and the families into a groove, and even if it's just visits and showing faces, because let me tell you, right now, the thing that we should be focusing most on is the fact that we gotta teach the kids here and now and not be thinking about and worrying about where are we going. And I know that's your role, but let me tell you, you've kind of thrown all the staff up in the air, and they're concerned and worried, and we already have enough worries about, after COVID, what are we doing now and here and today? So that's just my opinion.
Thanks, Beth.
You got live and then Renee.
Anybody else out here? Yeah, go ahead.
Christina Wright. I'm also going to say that the retention of staff has been an issue, and I feel like every couple of years everybody says, oh, let's do this, and then staff members don't want to stay. They don't know what's in store for them, so they're leaving. And we've had some really great staff, and they just keep on leaving because they don't know, am I going to have a job in a year, or am I going to have a job in 2 years? Well, I just started out, so I better go to a school district that is going to keep me on and is going to keep me employed, and I know that I can stay there and retire from there. We've lost tons of staff. The turnover has been, it's been kind of crazy. The middle school has turned over multiple times. Kids aren't necessarily staying anymore in the district. There's not enough being offered anymore. My daughter tried to do Journey East. It was, COVID happened. But you say the Immersive Learning Center, well, it's great. The Journey East would have been an amazing thing. The classes were amazing, but it's a lot of work to be able to take that semester off. And if you're not dedicated to be able to, and academically able to take a whole semester off of your education to focus on one thing, I mean, it's hard to catch up after you've taken that semester off. There's classes that you miss. And I don't think that you're realizing a kid could do it for a semester, but not all kids can do it for a semester. So how many kids are gonna be able to take advantage of this Immersive Learning Center that we're really excited for?
Thank you. I think Renee is next. Yeah. We'll get back to
Hello. I just had a couple questions and comments too. First of all, I really appreciate the updated meeting minutes on the website. They're a lot more detailed the past 2 times, which is great, and the website looks good. I enjoyed looking at the building plans. I'm a resident of Brookline. I have a son at Newbrook who's a first grader, and I'm also an educator at Townsend Elementary. I'd say my couple comments, I guess, would be that I definitely, as an educator, I agree that having like 2 classrooms per grade level and being able to collaborate a little more is something that teachers and students need. So I can definitely be on board with that, and the grade banding is something to consider curriculum-wise. So I was curious, one of my questions is, so if 3 through 12 is at Leland and Gray, so there would be 2 administrators?
That is the current plan.
So it'd be 3rd through 8th grade administrator?
More than likely, it would be a K2 and then walk across the hall, and 3-5, and allow 2 administrators to focus on middle and high school, 6 through 12.
Okay, so that one administrator would have to travel a little bit.
They would walk, yes.
Yeah, yes. I walk to the middle school often. Something else that I'm hearing is the bus routes is obviously a big issue. I'm wondering is it possible to get like a mock-up of bus routes eventually?
Yes, we actually have that.
Oh, okay. Is that on the website yet?
It is not on the website yet, but it's in the works. So we should have that for you soon.
Great, thank you.
It's a map the size of this table.
Yeah.
And then I guess my only other comment would be my biggest concern about Having no gym at Townsend would be the off-site Dutton gym. I think as a parent, I would definitely not be comfortable with that. And I think also as an educator, our schedules are back to back to back with no transition time already. I mean, I have classes that end and start at the same time. So I'm just thinking the transition time would really be unreasonable. So just something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Renee. Yeah, go ahead, Rudy.
From a high school perspective, a lot of this sounds like you're really focusing on the elementary schools, and the high schools don't really feel like they're getting as much like increase in like all these nice things and stuff. Like I personally have had classes cut down, like only options having chorus or PE or taking an online class, which is really hard as somebody that needs certain credits and can't get them from the school. So when you're adding more in, is that taking like less opportunities for classes in the high school? Like if you're adding like the 3 of them because of the classroom situation and stuff, to the point where like you're cutting down on the classes that have fewer numbers, which is like the AP classes, for example, who have like 5 members, but the people that are in those classes really just need those things because we want them on our transcripts for college and stuff, because those are very important classes to us. And we're trying to, like if you look at a lot of the high level classes, we don't have high enrollment, but the kids that are taking them are needing them. Also from like listening around to fellow schoolmate peers and stuff, then a lot of kids kind of are very freaked out, I guess, by having to go to school possibly with 3rd graders, to the point where I've heard multiple people saying that they would actually rather transfer out to another school than have to be in a school with younger students and having those possibilities taken away. Like that's from hearing other students, like today even.
Thanks, Ruthie. Jocelyn.
Hi there, my name is Jocelyn and I live in Townsend, but we utilize school choice, so our girls go to Newbrook. We moved from South Newfane. Oh boy, I have a lot of things to say, so I'm just gonna pick a couple. But just on the bus route thing, if we were still in South Newfane, right now my girls do soccer 4 days a week, and I have 2 jobs. So that's a lot. And if we were in South Newfane and we had to go to Townsend, I would not be able to make soccer happen for them like that. That just wouldn't, that wouldn't work. So that's definitely, I know 10 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, but it really adds up, especially when you have little kids and bedtimes and, you know, I work evenings, etc. And I know that these quote unquote options are just ideas, but some of the ideas that I've been seeing in there have been making me nervous. Also, just as a little background, I went to Compass School in the first year. I transferred there. So as students, we had a large hand in building that school. And it was a little messy at first, but I learned a lot of great things about that and about thinking really creatively. And one thing that Compass really had going for it was space. And we used that space really creatively to bring in really interesting community members, and also thinking creatively about how us students could go to, you know, like someone's sewing studio and do like an immersive learning thing with them, or an artist studio. And so I think there's really creative ways to enable immersive learning for kids. And so some of the stuff that's making me nervous is seeing like taking away the gym or a library. And when we're talking about like building a community, those are community spaces. Like you all are sitting in the library right now, And, you know, a lot of community events happen in a gym, and I just feel very nervous about taking away those spaces just for the day-to-day logistics for the children, for gym class and library and all that stuff. And, you know, making music and art mobile just doesn't make sense to me. You know, I think there's other things that would make more sense to make those mobile, more immersive learning stuff that could be mobile. You know, Miss Pa does an amazing job with art classes, and her room is always very organized, but there's paint splatter everywhere and clay, and, you know, that's how an artist studio should look. And I just can't imagine she could maintain that level with having to carry everything around to different classrooms. So maintaining those community spaces, I feel, is really important. And it just, making windowless classrooms and stuff, it just sounded really bleak. It's sounding, you know, I don't want to say like a prison, but it's not looking joyful. And I think that there's other ways that we could think really creatively to make really beautiful and beneficial spaces for our children that they will thrive in. Thanks.
Thanks, Jocelyn.
I'm Joyce Van Pamelen. I have been teaching in Wyndham Central now for 47 years. I taught at Brookline, and now I've been teaching at Newbrook, and I think it's really important to remember the very uniqueness of the schools that we have and the wealth of knowledge that we have with the many people and educators. And I really like the way your high school student, I think your name is Ruthie, I really like the way you spoke up, because I think it's critical for us to remember that, you know, all these places have uniqueness, and please request us to be able to help and give knowledge and answer questions. And because we're out there, and as Jeff Merrill said, it's pretty scary thinking about how things could change. Especially to an old dinosaur here.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sarah Webb.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi. Hi, I'm Sarah Webb. I'm a parent at Newbrook Elementary. I do want to thank everyone. I'm hearing something I wasn't aware of, is the massive amount of time the Long-Term Planning Committee has been putting into this process. And I personally, and I'm sure the community as well, appreciate all that time. And what I'm also hearing a lot of is just the importance of allowing us greater access to that time, and maybe we can be of help. I think more voices, especially from the teachers and the administration in our community schools, could really be of benefit. And I would really love to see a Zoom option, or at least a recording that we can play back of the Long-Term Planning Committee, just so that we can have a better idea of how these decisions are being made, or how these ideas are being brought forth, and what it might help a lot if we knew what you did consider, and we just don't know what you considered. Maybe it would help us understand better how you arrived at the decisions you're making. And lastly, I've actually started listening to other people talk. I've been feeling excited about the possibility of expanding and bolstering the current learning opportunities in our schools. I heard an equating a world-class education to the central campus, but what we have in our schools, we already have some good programs that just need some help and attention. And we could provide those great immersive learning opportunities on a more individual and local level. And I think it's something we could share among schools. It'd be great if we shared ideas. I know I'm involved in the Farm to School Committee at Newbrook. And I know the children love, my kids always talk about when they've had Farm to School experiences at school. And that'd be something that would be great to expand, and also to share the ideas and maybe resources with other schools without the upheaval of moving all the kids and trying to restructure a building. But then also hearing a lot of people share my love of our local schools. And I think that's important for elementary school age kids. Whereas coming together for high school and even in middle school is great for that age, but elementary, I would really love to see our local schools remain intact. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. All right. Anybody else out here? All right, I think we have.
I got one more thing.
We'll get back to the board. Anybody else in the audience? Seeing no hands. All right, we will bring it back to the board. I don't know what your view said.
You can go. All right. I'll go. I'll be quick. So I think, Lori, I saw something that the census data is out in November, maybe? Is that correct?
Right, we're just starting it now.
Okay.
It needs to be to the state by November 15th. So we are seeing significant drops in student counts in West River, also in some other districts as well. So, again, that's why I put that in bold yellow.
Right.
We don't have equalized people
Right.
yet or anything, so.
So that's kind of my concern, because appreciating all the work that's gone into this, if we did this and we spent the roughly $500,000 and we did this, and then what happens if we lose another 25 or 50 kids? Are we then talking about then having to close the Immersive Learning Center because we don't have the funding to support it? That's the big thing that doesn't quite track in my mind, is if we're trying to get to long-term viability, we need to, well, we all recognize that, some of this is beyond our control. And, when families are moving out of the state, that's beyond the local board's control. So I guess that's just my concern, is that we could do this and it could be wonderful, but it might not solve our problem. And we could find ourselves a couple years down the road saying we can't afford to run this extra building with the Immersive Learning Center in it, which none of us want to see, but I'm just saying that's a potential pitfall that I can see. So if anybody can, assuage my fears on that, I'd love to hear it.
So I wish I could promise that we won't have a continuing decrease.
Well, nobody can, right.
But obviously nobody can do that. The situation is that, we are in the situation we are in, and I think everybody is pretty aware that, as we always say, we can't keep doing what we're doing. We can't keep having our budgets voted down and providing less than the best education. We want it to be the best. We want it to be world class. And every year we talk about, what are we gonna cut? What are we gonna cut now? And every year we said, this is it. We can't possibly cut anything else. That is it. Don't even ask. And the next year our budget gets voted down. And then we're like, okay, I guess we're cutting something. And we talk about,
but
staff turnover, and we talk about the concerns with the staff being like, geez, I don't know if I can feel confident in my ability to stay in this district. They currently are feeling that, because every year we approach this topic and say, we really don't want to do it, but we can't pass a budget unless we cut something. And we're trying to, we want to run great schools.
No, right, but it makes me wonder if this is a wise investment, because we don't know what the future holds. There are things beyond our control, and maybe that investment is better invested in operating what we already have. I'm just asking the question.
But you can't maintain what you.
Go ahead, Ken.
It's just going to be adding more maintenance.
Okay, so I want to hit this on the opposite spectrum of where he's coming from here, which is the committee wants to do they keep saying one campus, but it's not one campus, because you're still going to have your pre-K 1 and 2 somewhere else.
No, that's not what we're currently looking at.
Oh, so you're looking at, everybody's going to be on this in Townsend.
That's what we're currently looking at.
Okay, you're currently looking at that. Okay, and you are going, with that aspect, you are overcrowding both buildings to the point where the septic can't handle it over there. You're gonna take this community space here and turn it into classrooms, which I will ask Bob to jump in and say what else this room is used for during the day as soon as I'm done with this point. Okay, which is building a model that's going to attract more students is one of the primary goals of doing something different. When you attract 30 or 40 more kids to come to this school and there's no room for them, what do you tell them?
Yeah. What do you
Okay, so you're setting yourself up for failure. Just pointing that out to you. Bob, take it.
What exactly is your question, Ken?
We
The
already
question
know,
is,
Ken.
this room,
It's a lunchroom. It's used as.
what else is it? Well, it's also used after school too,
Well,
right? There, if I'm,
There's people in here all day long,
yes.
a variety of different uses.
Okay, so if, without this room, what does that do to the management of your students throughout the day?
I guess I'd have to find another place for students who are in here during the day.
Oh, it's just that easy. Okay, thanks, Bob.
Go ahead, Joyce.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah, please.
So if this library here is turned into classroom space, what age children are going to be in this space?
Let's go to Google.
high school.
You were there.
This would be the high school floor.
Middle school.
You want me to answer this?
Please do.
Okay,
Sure, go ahead.
So I constructed these potential things because I was tasked with the job of figuring out if we went to a one-campus model, what are the one-time costs? Well, if I don't know how things might potentially fit or how they can fit, I can't tell you how much things are going to cost. So but what I'm catching is people are merging the two. Like, you wouldn't, if you did 3 through 5 here and had to cut this room up into classrooms, you wouldn't have to cut up that one, right? So the build was like an either or, right? Like either Townsend is really overpacked or Leland and Gray is kind of overpacked and maxed out. Like that was kind of it, right? So, you know, but to answer your question, this was all high school and middle school courses, the way I proposed it, which again, was strictly mine. I'm not qualified to make any of these decisions, but I stuck all the math classes in here thinking this way, kids would only have one class a day where they would be in a windowless room, versus if I put in an English or social studies and a math, kids could potentially have a full day where they don't see the great outdoors. And so, you know, there was a little bit to that, you know, like that was kind of the idea. But yeah, none of it was a great fit. None of it was, you know, I mean, it was fun, but it wasn't fun. You know what I mean? Like, it's fun to clear out layouts and see what you can fit, but it's not fun to think about that as a parent. I think about those same things of 3rd graders and 12th graders in the same building, and how would you do that? And I openly admitted to Bob that pulling that off in this building would be a scheduling, you know, feat.
Say it, because we need to hear these things.
Huh?
We need to hear these things.
Yeah. But in my opinion, the second idea of putting more kids in here was the more feasible of the two, just because of all the way you would chop that building up, and then if you chopped up that gymnasium there, you were relying on Dutton for your K to 8 PE, whereas at least if you're relying on 3 to 8, it's a little less of a push on Dutton, but there's still other uses for Dutton, as Bob has been great to point out, like, you know, that make it difficult. There's no doubt. Your district's in a very interesting space where your numbers are going down, but none of your buildings are big enough, even your elementaries, to absorb as much as what it really makes sense. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, and thank you for thinking also like a parent. I think that's important for all of us to do, not think it's just our one job, but as parents also.
Good, Pat.
I have a thought, you know, there's been a lot of discussion here that I've gone a little back and forth. And if, you know, and Karen and I have been to most of the meetings, so we've seen the processes these guys go through to come up with these ideas. And if somebody has a better idea, I don't think they'd mind hearing about it. I think it's time for the public to be involved and look for areas of involvement. Go out and seek them out. Don't expect them to walk up to you. And help these guys. Help them come up with something else. Somehow, I mean, Jamaica School can't stay the way it is. And Jamaica Town is not going to be okay if none of this happens. And we've got to give up our school, and our kids are the only ones riding a long way. I can tell you that. That'll go over like a lead balloon. So, and it's not fair. It would not be fair. So give these guys something to work with. They're open, and they're lively, and they're, you know, excited, and just don't be all negative. Give them some positive feedbacks. Have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? Instead of how it won't work, what maybe something else, that a tweak or whatever. So just a suggestion.
Thanks, Patty. I think I had Barbara, and then I'll go behind.
Gracie had a question too.
I'm sorry?
Gracie
Yep.
has had her hand up for a while.
All right, we'll go. Did you repeat?
Yeah.
Were you first?
I'm sorry.
Were you
Gosh,
before
I'm so
Barbara?
sorry.
Maybe. Oh, it's fine. It happens all the time.
I was yelling for her earlier. I wanted to get. I'm sorry.
about that.
It's still in my head.
Let's go Ruthie, Barbara, and then Alex. Go ahead.
So I was looking at the map of the layout, and I know me and Mr. Tebow talked about it earlier in our meeting, but I'm not seeing any world language classroom in here, so how would that affect those classes? And I'm also, Terry's not anywhere in this plan, and I know Terry does a lot of things, like she runs all the co-op programs, she runs like a lot of things like which you have in office and stuff. Like there's just small classes, but they're kind of very necessary. I mean, I know I do a co-op, I spend a lot of time with Terry in her room and listening to her talk. She has a lot of things that she does, and I think she needs that space and stuff. I don't actually know what Terry's official title is. What is her title, like?
She's the work-based learning that we
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it actually is.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Greg.
So real quick, so I had a document that was given to me by Bob that was every classroom
Yeah.
and every program that was run in it. And I didn't, the only thing you lost was, we went from two language spaces, I was able to get you down to one.
Okay.
Which I think was also on B, or yeah, was somewhere here on B.
Yeah.
But it's still, I mean, yeah, there's no doubt, you know, like it's a lot tighter than it currently is. But there was, in this initial plan, there was no loss of current classes of what you had. I was able to kind of do the best I could to try to make that fit. I didn't, you know, they were pretty straight with me of like, we want this plan and this thing, but we can't lose anything. The director of curriculum, director of special ed, same thing. I can't have, you know, they gave me like, hey, my spaces need to have X, Y, Z. I want sunny, I want windows, so right now you have a middle school special ed that is in the middle of the building room on A level, and I got them down to a B level room with a window, you know, like, so like in some ways I felt like I made some things better, but obviously, you know, somebody that would be stuck in a room in here is not gonna feel like they made an improvement in their class space. I tried.
Yeah. I also had a question about, we have our music programs, and I know that, would there be like an addition to that, like another music teacher added? Because I know Mr. Bernard has very limited time in the fact that he's teaching a couple middle school classes, like he has his beginner band and stuff, and like how would that align? And like my sister, she takes high school classes while in middle school, and like there's a lot of scheduling difficulties, like kind of things like those problems align. I know that for teachers, like those problems.
It's hard for the four of us to get
Yeah.
into curriculum. That was one of the things that we had the difficulty with this committee, is people are, you know, like they want to know what we're going to do for immersive. Well, that's curriculum. We don't get into that. I mean,
We're not going to design the curriculum.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not the
I guess I was
educators.
just wondering if there would be like another music teacher added in, or a space, because it also does get tight during the days, because both of the teachers have lessons throughout the day, like through music space. I know Peter's probably experienced that. I mean, we go into different places. The chorus and band class are the same times. One of them does it in the activity room, and the other one has the band room. So like,
So our current thought on, just to answer the question about the music teachers, is that the elementary teacher that is still going, that would still exist, right? So we're not getting rid of the current educators that are educating these same students. So that teacher could still cover any number of things, right? Whatever those things are.
But she's talking about
not just music.
spaces. Like if the chorus is in the activity room and there's something else going on in the activity room, it's kind of hard to do chorus. Those are things we still have to pound out.
Yep. Thank you.
Language might have to float.
Well, we have
That was one of
we
the
do have
ideas. Yeah. We were thinking about floating classrooms at one point.
All right, go ahead, Bob.
Well, I think people ahead of me, I just want to make sure you saw my hand or something.
Yeah.
But there's people ahead of me.
I just want to remind everybody that this is an idea.
Yes.
We don't want to go down the rabbit hole, continue to get into the weeds on this, especially if it's certainly not been decided on. I'd like to take a couple more questions, and then I just have a comment about how we might be able to wrap this up. So, I'm sorry, you were next, right?
Yeah.
And then Barbara, and then Tim.
So, Lindsay, you said that the goal is to provide a world-class education. What I don't get is where the connection is between a world-class education and busing the kids down the road to put them in a more crowded classroom. Why can't we provide a world-class education at Jamaica Elementary School? Why do we have to close that school and bus the kids to Townsend? I just don't get it.
Would it be possible, Bill, to have you jump in on, or any administrator who has told us that having 2 classrooms per grade would be helpful? If we can talk about that for a minute.
We've been talking about that a little bit just because our teachers right now are kind of, I think they're less advantaged than they could be if they had some more interface with other teachers who are doing their same exact job. So if you have 2 4th grade teachers across the hall from each other, what could they do? They could plan together, they could buy materials together, they could get their PD together. If one was brand new, they could mentor, right? And all of that could happen without any kind of meeting that would require, the teacher, I mean, these teachers are working like crazy. So if we can minimize them needing to travel to Townsend in order to, from one of my schools to Townsend in order to meet with their mentor, that would be a great thing to do for them. I also want to mention a couple other things that could be tightened up too as far as going down that track, is that we occasionally at Newbrook will be looking down the pike, and Shelley Bostrom is my excellent kindergarten teacher. She'll come and meet with me in May, and we'll be looking at the numbers, the prospective numbers. When we'll be looking at 24 or 25, we'll start getting really nervous, what's going to happen over the summer. But then meanwhile at Townsend, maybe they've got 12 or 10, or it could be the other way, and they'd have the big bubble and we'd have no, if we had them in the same building, we could divide the kids evenly, and we could divide them socially as well, which also is important if you got a cohort where the kids aren't getting along very well, which happens in small schools, right? Then we could also divide them socially that way, but then during math class, maybe we would divide them differently. And if we had the teachers in the same place, we could give them common planning time so they could go through the process of saying, hey, let's take this group, you'll take this group for math, I'll take this group for math, you'll take this group for ELA, I got these guys. But then they could socialize together in a larger group on the playground, maybe during their specials times, and they could all benefit from that. I do believe that those are benefits, without a doubt. What I wonder is at what cost do we get that? And so I think these are the difficult things you guys are going to be up against. But I definitely agree that there are a million reasons why an administrator, and probably staff as well, would like that kind of configuration. I think that to be able to work with a peer is really amazing. I'm on the phone with Craig all the time, or we're Zooming, because it's really it's nice to reflect with somebody who's got your same job, right? And that currently, that people do that. I know that Ms. Van Pamela meets with lots of other teachers throughout her day, because she brings perspective. But to have the person with the exact same job, and so you can say, what are you doing with Module 3.2 today? Because this isn't making any sense to me. That's the specificity that could happen.
So is that what you wanted, Liz?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Scotty.
I just want to respond. I don't buy it. I mean, I understand that it's convenient for the teachers.
Okay.
It's nice to chat with your friends, but the cost of busing these kids all over the place, so you know, you can chat with the teacher across the hall. I don't see how that outweighs, you know, the constitutional demand that we have a school in each town.
Howie, I'm not arguing against you. I'm just saying that I believe that these are objective things I'm saying about running a school, but I agree with you that transportation is the cost, so then you have to think that's what you guys are tasked with.
Right.
So
I
it's
mean,
really
I'm
tough.
not arguing that's be nicer for you guys. I'm sure it will be nicer for you guys, but you know, you have to think about thousands of gallons of diesel fuel and gasoline and kids being bused all over the place. And they say it's 10 minutes, but not when the weather's bad.
Excuse me, relative to this particular point, is I remember when this district first started merging, and I said to Mr. Tabachnik, sorry for putting you on the spot, but I'm going to call you on this because you were my principal at the time.
Still am.
Still are, one of them. We were talking about how we were going to have all the principals being able to get together and talk to each other and whatnot. And I said to Mr. Tabachnik, I said, excuse me, but don't you call up to Townsend and talk to Craig, and don't you talk to, you know, Jamaica and talk to Bob? And he goes, yes. He says, yes, we have phone calls all the time, and we do talk, and we do collaborate back and forth. And I said, oh, and they were doing this from 2 different buildings. So this whole aspect of saying that it's more convenient for them to be in the same building. It'll happen more often for them to get together in one building, okay? But it's not happening right now, which is very important.
All right, we have lots of folks out here that want to. All right, Barbara and then Tammy.
Barbara Guerrero. Is that who you mean?
Yes.
Which Barbara?
Thanks, Barbara.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I'm the school librarian at Leland and Gray. I want to thank those people who support the room and support the space there at the meeting. I just found out about the plan for the library. In one of the scenarios of the plan, we'd have math classrooms in the library. I just need to say I'm super disappointed that I was in the library when the team came through to look at the space. It was about 5:30. I'm often there at 5:30 because I cannot do the details of my job during the school day. Too many interruptions, which is great, part of the job. But not one person on the committee asked me about the space and how it is used.
That is not.
So,
I'm sorry. I did have a conversation with you and stood at the desk for a while and talked about the book.
No.
All right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we talked about books, but the library is so much more than books.
Yes.
So, I'm just a little frustrated, and I had a parent the other day ask me, "Hey, do kids really need a library anymore?" And I just want to take this opportunity to say, yes, they do. And it's not just about books, okay? So I'm sorry Bob got put on the spot because we haven't had time to talk about how the library is being used. It's being used a lot because of COVID. It's very busy. We don't have much time to stop and reflect. But I do, on behalf of the teachers, I don't know, I think you have to actively ask their opinion. We're just completely overloaded. We don't have time to figure out when you're meeting. Survey us, do something. But I would tell you that I feel that my professional, the space, and I am underutilized, but the question is not, we don't need you. The question is, why? That's all I've got to say. Thanks.
Thanks, Barbara. Tammy? You're on mute.
Working on it.
I know, I'll get hit for that later.
I just thought Tammy Clausen, Townsend resident and employee of Leland and Gray or West River Education District for 32 years. So, you know, as somebody who has seen this building in its uses over the 32 years, I'm not really sure where you honestly believe you can fit. I'm not sure how many students it is, 3 through 5, that the proposal entertains the idea of bringing to Leland and Gray. In terms of Dutton as another space for additional PE classes, I can tell you that just a rainy day like today, there are 3 PE classes that are trying to find a place to be all at the same time. And we're coming up on the musical, which we can't wait for, Mamma Mia. But that'll be, you know, 3 weeks in November that there will be, that option's not there. So I can't even imagine, you know, it's just 6 through 12 right now trying to wrestle for space. I can't imagine if you add 3 through 12 during the numerous activities that take place at our facilities that I think people, you know, on a beautiful sunny day this fall that we've had, why would you see people in Dutton, right? I mean, we should be outside. But as we enter these winter months, that gym will be used pretty much every day, almost all hours of the day, with just the 6 through 12 students here. So I just, as athletic and activities director, I just wanted to give my input in terms of the building use. So thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Kelly.
Geez, that brings back memories of
You could
remote.
ask her to add her last name.
Sounds like a great dog.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Bob definitely had his hand up.
So Bob Tito, for those who don't know me, I'm the principal here at Leland and Gray. I guess I just wanted to, I know you said you maybe want to wrap up the conversation soon, and this might help, maybe not. It could be like little grenades that.
Thanks, Bob.
But in teaching, one of the things that we do is we think about what the end goal is. What do we want the kids to learn? Then we backwards plan, all right? Then we assess along the way to see how close we're hitting our targets to get to that end goal. I guess I'm wondering, what's the end goal? Is, you know, A and B, or is this like, are those variations, is that the end goal? Or is that a stopping point along the way to get to an end goal? And I guess I wonder whether or not it might be useful for a long-term planning committee, which is named LongTerm, to identify what the actual long-term outcome is, and then show how maybe some steps might help get us there. I don't know if that's where you're going, but I'm wondering, there's a lot of conversation around, like you said, the weeds, around what this room and where this language class is. And that's all good conversation, but I wonder really, would people be as, I don't want to say divided, because I think we're all want what's best for kids, but would we be so far apart maybe in certain places if we all knew what the end game was going to be? Because you can tolerate certain inconveniences if it's in service to a really good goal down at the end that we can all see. And I'm just wondering, maybe that's something that maybe they should take a step back and sort of think about that and then start to fill in some of those steps along the way. I don't know if that's helpful, but
That is
my educator hat kind of thinking
super helpful, Bob. Yeah, couldn't agree. Yeah, I think with the end.
Because they've done a ton of work, and they've spent months and months and months. I don't want it to go away. I don't want their work to be thrown out, but I do think it might be a great time to kind of step back.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Right, like 10 years from now, that's long term.
Right.
Is
third grade going to be in this building 10 years from now? Is that what we're talking about, or is that a short term?
Is that what we're trying to figure out? Yeah, who's going to be in the library?
Because I think the problems, when you think about the longer term, 10, 20 years away, like how many of these buildings are going to need renovation or whatever? Like there might be some things to think about looking at some of the building capital plan stuff that's been presented over the last 10 years. Just in the last 5 years since I've been around, there's been a lot of information around the building, so. Anyways.
Yeah, great idea. That's awesome. I think Jenny and then I've got Chris. Jenny, could you state your full
Hi.
name since you're did not put your last
Hi, I'm Jenny Kessler. I'm a parent. I have a pre-K student at Townsend, and I'm relatively new to the area and just trying to figure out the schools here in the school district. And so mostly I'm just listening and trying to take all this in. But I just wanted to say it really didn't sit well with me when it looks like, I couldn't see your name before, Mr. Iris, maybe, the board member, after Scotty spoke, just said, I don't buy it. I don't buy, you can go across the hall and talk to your friend, that might be nice. And I've been an educator for 13 years. I haven't worked in this district. I haven't worked in Vermont, but that makes me feel really uncomfortable. Like, I don't really understand how this came about or what the input from the community has been. It sounds like people are kind of on different levels of contribution or, what led to this. But I really hope that the board is listening really carefully to community members. And it would seem to me that the teachers and the administrators that have worked in this district for many years, I know they have a better feel than me, and they probably have a better feel than some board members of what would really work and what would be best for the kids. And I mean, like, I worked in super collaborative schools, and being able to talk to my colleagues like all the time it made me, if I had been in a room by myself from day one, I would have been a terrible teacher compared to what I turned out to be working with my colleagues. And also, like, what he spoke about with being able to move students around or, work with different groups throughout the day, I think just in my experience can be extremely helpful. So, like I said, I'm just kind of listening. I don't really have opinions about this, but I do hope that you guys are listening carefully to the teachers and the admin who I think probably have strong opinions about this.
Thank you, Jenny. You got Chris and then
Lynn has her hand up.
Yep.
I don't think Lynn knows. Yeah.
Chris and then.
Chris Churs. I am a resident of Townsend and the 5th grade teacher over at Townsend. I guess I'm kind of backing up a little bit, talking about grade bands or the teachers being able to get together and talk. So Joyce and I have had the opportunity, I don't know how many, and Scotty, many years ago we had GLAMs, which were teacher driven. And our 5th grade group, 5-6 group, with all the kids in the district had an opportunity, and we were excited about working in those meetings when we got to plan. We read a book together, we talked about it, we had groups, intermingled groups, we went on trips, we did lots of stuff together. We didn't have to be in the same building to do that. We were able to do that because we were provided the time to have that conversation and to do that. And that time has changed and shifted, which is there's still value to what we're doing now, but we're missing that piece that was teacher driven. So, thank you.
And we were able to do that for
2
decades.
times? Yeah, a couple of times. Yeah.
Aha.
Thank you. Thanks. Appreciate it. Sorry, Lynn and then Elizabeth. Go ahead, Lynn. Linda?
Linda.
Am I unmuted? Okay. I don't in any way want to negate the importance of this conversation, and it's critical for our kids and our parents. But I just need to ask one simple question as an old lady. Are we going to get to the second item on the agenda or not? It's past my bedtime. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Mine too.
Thank you. That was great.
Nice segue.
Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Erickson, and I'm a parent of a couple Newbrook kids and middle school students, and I'm the Four Winds coordinator at Newbrook. And I want to thank everybody for all their work that they've put into this. And there's a lot of questions that could be answered in real time if they're is it possible to include teachers and administrators to help and just be formally part of the long-term planning committee?
just a question.
Oh, what's the question? Is formally.
She wants to know if they could be part of it.
We encourage all of our administrators to come to all of our meetings. They have made it to some, but certainly not all. We do meet an awful lot. We also have had a handful at least of different teachers at various meetings, but we do not at this time have like a formal representative from any of those things who comes to every meeting 4 hours a week. That does not exist yet.
Is it a possibility? Because I feel the teachers and administrators really, they have the best experience and knowledge, for restructuring the learning environment. And, this is really long-term planning. I think it's really important that they're involved. And you guys have been working really hard, and I very much appreciated all your volunteer time. But is there a way to be there could be a formal committee with the administrators and teachers?
I don't know.
If the board wanted to constitute a committee as such, yes, that's within the board's power. That was not the charge to the Long-Term Planning Committee. The Long-Term Planning Committee was charged to do exactly what they did and to bring it to the board at this time. So any configuration that the board would like to decide to do and give direction to, that is within the board's power, yes.
I think it would be very helpful if we had administrators and educators on this committee.
Would we need to budget for overtime?
Can we please raise hands, right? They've raised their hands, please, us raise our hands as well. Go ahead.
Oh, would we need to budget for overtime if we were to include staff?
It's a great question.
Because 4 hours is significant, especially if you have multiple people.
Very true.
It would be a volunteer basis.
Volunteer basis? Yeah. Yes, as we are.
God love
Go ahead,
my
Joyce.
number cruncher.
So are people on the board subcommittee, are they getting paid by the hour? Is that why somebody's asking?
We're not getting paid at all.
They're volunteers.
Then it would be up to, it's sort of like at Newbrook, we sometimes say, okay, we want somebody to volunteer to go to PTO or go to a board meeting or to something like that. But I think this is such an important piece. I think it makes the most sense to have the people that are working with the children that you are dreaming for need to participate and have that opportunity. And I think it's the same with the administrators.
Right, I want to be clear, I mean, they've already stated this. Anybody can come at any time, and yes, we are now going to take steps to make that more accessible
I
for
think it would be a
people.
good idea to make it somehow, sort of official so that we know that, you're saying, we want your help.
Well, if there's a specific person that would volunteer for such a position, it's not like if it's a volunteer position, we could, say so-and-so has to do it. Sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
No, that's it.
I would also include a couple of students in there.
I think
such as Ruthie and Peter or somebody else. I think that would be important also. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. All stakeholders. Completely agree. All right, I'd like to just try to, since it is 9:23, and as I want to point out, we have not gotten to agenda item number 2.
So this was agenda item number 2.
So, it's fairly clear to me that we're not really far enough down the road to be in time for this budget. And Lori, just correct me if I'm wrong, but we basically have 2 months.
Correct, right, and if I could just jump in,
Please.
along that note is, there is also a budget committee that has been in the past, so I don't know how that works into this or not, but yes, we are needing to get a budget put together.
Right.
so in the next 2 months.
So we're 2 months out. We are, I don't want to say in the middle of COVID, but we're somewhere in COVID. We just don't know where it is. There are a lot of folks that are stressed out by not just COVID, but a lot of other things. This in some ways feels like another stressor for folks that maybe we don't want to put on people at this time. Not to say that everything that the Long-Term Planning Committee has done is not super valuable and important and is what we need to do and continue to do. But I think at this point, for this budget season, we just don't have enough time. They will not have enough time to reach all of the stakeholders that we need to, the students, the administrators, to not only find out whether ideas have been presented are possible, but are practical and will serve the best interests of our students. I don't think we're there yet. I think it would be better for us to just take an approach where we are able to engage all of our stakeholders. And if that takes us through next summer in a logical fashion, where potentially we hire a facilitator to facilitate this, a professional to go through the ideas, work amongst all of the stakeholders to get us to the best possible position. I think that would be the best thing. I mean, also, the idea that we have versus what Lori has presented as what we would be just if we, I don't want to say did nothing, but just kind of followed the same path. Not a whole lot of a difference, right? And I know that the idea is not to have a lower priced education. The idea that Long-Term Planning Committee is after is giving our taxpayers and everybody the best education for the dollars that we have available. So I completely understand that. We're not looking for cost savings. But I just think that is my opinion, is that we should do this in a logical fashion, in a fashion that involves everybody, all of the stakeholders, so that we can get the best possible product at the end. And also, as Bob said, certainly thinking about what do we want to do 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What is that end goal? And then work back to fill in the blanks. So that's kind of how I feel. How does everybody else think about that?
I think you should make a motion. I think that sounds like a lot of sense.
Okay.
All right, so if you're looking for a motion, I would move to recreate the Long-Term Planning Committee with different stakeholders involved in the committee to have an equal say, such as parents, teachers, students, along with board members. That's a motion I would make.
Okay, but are we speaking to the timing?
Let's form a committee. And let's then work on the time.
Okay, would you agree or disagree that we really don't have time in the next 2 months?
Oh, we definitely don't have time in the next few months. There's way too much to work out here for it to even be anywhere near a conclusive finding to say that we can do this on one campus.
So would you amend your motion
Go ahead.
You want to amend your motion somehow to say that, to reflect that the timing is going to go till like next year, basically?
Is that what you're worried about, the timing? Sure, that's fine.
I have a motion to continue our present configuration for another year.
There we go.
So I would move that we continue our present school configuration for the coming budget year. And while we continue the long-term planning process.
Does that sound reasonable to you?
That sounds reasonable, but we eventually need to get the other stakeholders involved in the process.
That would take place.
I
over the
totally
course
agree
of
with
the year.
that. We can do that separately.
Yeah. Okay, then let's do that separately. Let's,
So second my- second my
so
motion.
his, Howie's motion there.
Could you repeat that motion? I couldn't hear it.
My motion is to continue our present school configuration for the coming budget process.
Ken, you're a second?
I seconded it.
Yes, sorry.
Mike seconded.
Discussion? Sorry, board discussion. Any discussion?
No discussion.
Al, I got a comment.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Drew.
So we've started and stopped this conversation. I can't count the number of times over the years. Each time we reduce additional programming and we take away educational opportunities for our kids. The longer we kick this can down the road, the more damage we're doing to the educational opportunities that our children have. I know a lot of us have sat on this board and watched programs be cut, opportunities be removed from our kids year after year. And at some point, we've got to stop delaying making decisions. And though I understand the need to make a well-informed decision, I think pushing the timeline and continuing to push the timeline forward and kind of restarting this work every year but never completing it is what's causing the damage to our kids. As a board, we have a responsibility to make these decisions. We have a responsibility to do the research so that we can make the appropriate decision. From the Long-Term Planning Committee perspective, my perspective on that committee, we're doing that research like we were asked to do, and by kind of asking us to almost restart that process over again, pushing the timeline for another year, really discredits the work that we've done, and it also pushes the pain for our children forward another year or another 2 years, because next year at this time, we're just going to kick the can again. So I would encourage this board to continue moving forward with what's best for the education of our kids and what's best for our communities, and do the work. Let's not delay it. Let's just do the work.
Thanks, Drew. Anybody else on the board? No?
I mean, I guess
Go ahead.
I'd just point out that under idea A and B, our operational budget is looking the same with what we know this year. So we're looking cautiously optimistic that we don't get hit by the census too hard. We're looking at a relatively lower tax rate than we've seen in the last few years.
No. 22 cents is the floor, and it's going to be more than that.
Right, okay, well, according to this document, it's at $1.86.
That's
current.
Oh, that's, all right,
That's
all
the
right,
current
I
one
got
that
you. I got
you-
you. I stand corrected. But, anyway, I still think that it's wise to I'm not trying to negate the good work that the committee has done, but we're hearing discontent from staff, or not discontent from staff, but we're hearing concern from staff and public that I think we should bring everybody in and have the conversation so that when we eventually do come to whichever conclusion, we really feel like we've got the community behind us, and that we're really doing what the community is wanting. And that's just my 2 cents.
Thanks, Mike. All right. Were you just looking, Patty? I saw it.
No. No, whenever it's my turn.
Okay. Megan, and then go ahead, Megan.
Hi, sorry. So Drew, just to speak to what you just said, I completely understand with you not wanting to continue to delay this process because it's a very old and repeatedly discussed process to you. But I think now that it's become a reality to the people that live in our community that have children in these schools. And, after what Ruthie said, it's not, she really opened my eyes to the fact it's not just going to affect the elementary school kids, it's really going to affect the high school kids also. And I think, the Long-Term Planning Committee has been asked to do research, but I don't feel like up until this point that research has involved like parents from the community, teachers, as well as students and people that, have property in the towns that we live in that it's going to affect their taxes. So I get that you guys have been like kicking this can around for a while, but I think now that it's sparked everyone's interest that we need to make sure that each party is represented in the conversation. That's it.
Thanks, Megan. Good, Penny.
Well, one concern is that the motion didn't have anything to do with the Long-Term Planning Committee continuing their work until next year. It just is that we have the same schools structure through the year, but it doesn't give any direction to the Long-Term Planning Committee to continue what they're doing and do the research, bring all the people in, bring the stakeholders in. I hope that doesn't mean that with this motion that this stops now and then doesn't pick up till next year. Also, I think there were some things that the Long-Term Planning Committee had come up with that could be immediate opportunities, such as childcare, the after-school, before-school childcare thing. I don't know where that is. There were some things that they asked Bob that what could we do this year that would make a difference. So, and I think there were some things. Am I wrong, guys?
No, we brought those up, hoping we could
So,
implement them right away, as soon as we could.
I mean, there are things
Make it
that
enticing.
wouldn't have a bad impact, they would have a good impact. But I think this committee should keep at it. That they aren't going to finish in time for budget, that's obvious. But this is a big thing, and it's going to take time. And I don't know that Jamaica School can keep going without knowing what's going to happen. Where are we? That's just a bad situation. And just to say, well, we're not going to do anything about that until a year from now, that's not good.
I don't think that,
I don't think
that's the intent,
Yeah,
but,
that's the intent.
no.
The intent
Okay,
wasn't
but-
to stop the process. The intent is just to say, okay, this process is going to continue for another year. We're not going to try and rush it through in this budget cycle in the next 2
Yeah,
months.
well,
And they still have their original
That way it
charge
came out.
mandate to do what
Yeah,
they're doing.
the committee's still, exactly, still doing what they're doing. They just
Okay.
have another year to continue doing it.
Just the way that it was worded, it seemed like, okay, we're just gonna,
Can we reread it? Yeah.
It was just simply a motion that we continue for this budget cycle in our present configuration. It didn't say anything, it doesn't address the long-term planning committee's work, which will continue on, and it's just saying, okay, we're not going to try and rush this through and put third graders in Leland and Gray next year.
Okay. Peter?
I just want to bring up a point on you have 2 months. To me, you're almost making it sound like 2 days. I know there is a lot that goes into this. I know a lot of it's over my head. But I just want to point out, you've got 2 months. You've still got time, and for me, when I have a school project, again, I know, simplifying it down, school project, nowhere near as big as this. But when I've got a school project, I don't ask my teacher, hey, do you mind just moving it until next year? Can I just not do this project until next year? I promise I'll definitely work on it. I won't do it at the last minute. If I would ever ask that and I would ever be approved, I would definitely do it at the last minute. But then see this exact conversation happening again. I say, you've got 2 months. Let's see how much work the community can get done in 2 months. With this, you're on a deadline, you're nearing it, that's when you double down. Not when you say, oh, let's add a little bit more time. It's when you double down on your work and you work even harder than before to get it done.
You're here.
Well said, Peter.
You're hired.
Well said.
I was gonna say.
There's a spot on our committee, I'm just.
Make it part of project-based learning.
Peter inspires us all. I would like to agree with Patty 100%, and please include some of the ideas that have come up, like the after school, before school, after school, childcare, and some of the other things. And let's get to work on a committee.
All right, sounds great.
Motion.
All right. Any other discussion? Seeing none. I'll start with Zoom land first. Emily.
Can I confirm once again what the motion is?
Go ahead, restate it.
The motion is that we operate our schools for the coming fiscal year as we have. And
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure it hadn't changed. But I vote yes.
Wait,
Thank you.
I feel like that was a different motion, actually, than what you said before. I just want to clarify.
He said current structure before, but it's the same.
So it's that we're going to build our budget, I just want to make sure I understand. We're going to build our budget around the current structure for this next year. Okay. All right, sorry.
No, good clarification.
Joe.
Joe.
Aye. Now that it's been confirmed enough.
Drew?
No.
Missing anybody?
I think it's just us three.
That's it?
Okay. Leanne?
No.
Lindsay?
Yes.
Dana?
I was going to push the deadline.
Ian?
Yes.
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 That's when I did my best.
All right.
Okay. What's the count on that?
8-2, without you voting.
Okay. 5, yes. All right, motion carries. So there was many points brought up about having folks from the community, administrators, et cetera, joining the Long-Term Planning Committee. Just trying to think if we should consider that for our next meeting, or, yeah, because I mean,
To restructure the committee.
yes, because I mean,
Absolutely, I think we should.
hold off until next.
That'd be a
No,
longer
no,
meeting.
we should restructure the committee and have it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Thank you. You're right.
So it happens
He's the
with
biggest
eye
abuser.
contact, Al.
Biggest abuser, yes. Go ahead.
Since we do have a year now, I mean, I guess we could take another month to the next meeting to think through carefully how that would be structured and, you know, what the recruiting methods would be and so forth. I'd like to take the time.
Makes sense. Bill, would you be able to work with the Long-Term Planning Committee and help think about
And Peter?
student and other administrators? Yeah, and Peter, of course.
It may not be me, but it'll be one of the administrators.
Right.
With me being informed.
Okay, other students involved.
So if I hear correctly, what is being discussed is the board would like the Long-Term Planning Committee to meet and discuss how to come back on November 15th to talk about how they could foresee continuing the process, involving stakeholders, laying out a timeline for a decision to be made prior to next year's budgeting. Something like that?
Correct.
So I think you've got to give the Long-Term Planning Committee time to absorb what has just happened here tonight, allow them to catch their breath and think through to be able to bring back something on the 15th. And yes, an administrator will participate in those meetings to help support the long-term planning committee.
Okay.
If that's what I'm hearing.
Yes, I believe that is.
May I?
Al?
You have Drew there, and then I just want to say
Go ahead,
one
Drew.
thing.
I just want to make sure that it's not being lost that the administration has been participating from the beginning. We've had input from all of our administrators and community members that have been coming, as well as teachers. So when we're discussing restructuring the committee, I think it's also important to understand that this committee doesn't actually have any authority. It does research on behalf of the board, so there's no decisions being made. So being present, being a community member, being present, or being somebody on the committee doesn't really change the discussion. So the administrators that have been giving their opinions from the beginning of this discussion, that's not going to change by restructuring the committee. So I'm not sure what the overall objective is, but I'm just wanting to point out that this is already happening.
Okay, fair point.
I would say the only thing we haven't had is to date is student participation in our meetings, but we've had very regular community members there, and we've had very regular administrators there, and pretty regular staff there.
And it sounds like Peter's going to join us from now on.
Yes. Lifelong member.
I can work on the student part. I am a very busy person as well, so I will try to dedicate as much time as I can to this. But if I cannot personally attend meetings, I will work on finding other student leaders who can.
All right, Peter, well, if you don't know when the meetings are yet, Bob, please let him know. No. Great, thank you, Peter. Oh, Fiona, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for a great conversation tonight. One thing I feel like there's been a lot put on these 4 people. It's a huge undertaking, and I think it would be really helpful, rather than asking the 4 members of this committee to figure out how to restructure, I think it would be really helpful to look at how our other schools looking at long-range planning and looking at getting and hiring a professional to facilitate these conversations, someone that's able to lead and able to help sure we're being efficient with our time and be able to really help the long-range committee be effective in their work. And I know you guys have been doing a ton of work, but I think it might be helpful to have someone to help facilitate that. And I do think, Drew, you bring up a good point that the committee does not have any authority, but also earlier when we talked about time and when the committee meets, it's been based on when the 4 of you are able to find time to do this. And if we want to have community stakeholders involved, and we want to really look at how we're going to be looking at the long-range planning, and really, I really like what Bob was saying about what is our end goal and how do we do backwards planning. That's the teacher in me, right? But I think if we have someone that is skilled in this to lead, I think that would be really helpful. So I think it would be good to look outside at who could we get to help with that, and what are the options for having a facilitator.
Thanks, Fiona. Yeah, actually, I did. I mentioned that a few moments ago about a facilitator, and maybe that's something that we do look at over the next couple months is hiring a facilitator to do that and guide us through the process in the first part of 2022, so we're ready for the next fiscal year. Yep, it's a great point. All right. So on that, we just need direction. We just need direction on the motion, correct? For the next.
So you already made a motion, and you had a vote, which was to build a budget based on your current structure. And then you had a discussion about what you were hoping was going to happen. But there wasn't really a there wasn't a motion.
Right.
It sounded like you were hoping that the long-term planning committee would meet, have a discussion about how they could bring back to the board some ideas about how to constitute a group and how to plan that work going forward. I don't think you need a motion for that. I've been able to see firsthand the amount of work that these 4 individuals have done. So I think it would be, I think it's respectful to let them know exactly what you're hoping that they would bring back on the 15th with specificity so that they know. It's a different charge, I guess is my point. You had a charge in April, you have a new charge now. I just think it's important for them to understand what it is the board is asking them to contemplate.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, well, I mean, as you know, I'm not in favor of the plan, but I would like to see the board get the communities, you know, if you want to proceed with one of these plans, take this year and get the community behind it. I mean, I think that would be the next charge, if you really believe that this is what, we should go to a single campus. Let's see what the community, you know, let's take this year and feel the community out on it, because it is a huge change.
I would like to point out, okay, can I?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. All right. Years back, an energy committee formed down at Newfane before it was Newburgh. And on that committee there was 4 members. I was one of the original members. That was 3 principals ago, 3 superintendents ago. We went through 3 superintendents, 3 principals at the building. Originally when we started out, we were looking at geothermal to be more energy efficient down in Newfane. What wound up happening was we wound up going with air-to-air heat exchangers and a solar field. Okay, so the committee never gave up. The committee just looked at new ways to be energy efficient. So maybe one campus isn't what you should be looking at when you're looking at a long-term plan. And maybe you'll come up with the right mix for the students and the families. That's all.
Okay.
Could I just, 3 of you guys are going to meet on Thursday. Do you know what you're even going to talk about?
I have no idea.
Okay. That's what I'm trying to get to, is, right?
I was waiting for it to come to fruition. I don't quite understand what the board would like next.
They don't want our ideas, so they want us to redirect.
Are you looking for us to come up with ways
to do
to
something
get
else that they want?
more community members, or I just,
I think that's the, I'll let Al go, I'm sorry.
I mean,
So-
we've had you know, Karen's here now still, and Patty has been at almost every single meeting, so, I mean, how many, tell me how many you would like. I don't know, I feel like we need, the board is, it seems to me that the board is feeling like there needs to be more of something happening, but I'm not sure exactly what it is, and I just want everyone to be very clear about.
I think it's just stakeholder involvement, isn't it? Kind of, and to get more.
More than the 2 community members that have been present.
Right, well, there's been
Okay.
2, but we hear, you know, we have a pretty full Zoom tonight, right?
Yeah.
So there's people are
Right,
interested.
but I'm just wondering.
And I think you guys have done a great job. Please don't.
No,
take it
I'm just trying to clarify, are you looking for, like, people that, like, you have volunteered to show up to every single meeting and you are on this committee, or are you looking for us to come up with ways to also do like a public outreach in general, like
Survey.
awareness thing? I just, I would like, I
Yeah,
guess.
so I think it would make sense that, I think initially when we started this conversation hours ago, we talked about getting a minute taker, somebody to take the minutes, looking into Zoom. I mean, there were a few things that we looked at. Can we just start there?
Sure.
Before we jump into
How do we make it more
changing the
accessible?
charge and, having to formally, or as Drew said, your committee is not, you don't make decisions, you bring things to the board to make a decision. So, getting folks involved by, doing those things, having a minute taker so that they are understanding of what's going on if they're not able to attend the meeting, being via Zoom, so that they can actually attend but not be in person. I almost feel like we should just start there.
Okay.
Before we
Discuss
add
more next meeting.
Yeah, before we start adding formally people to the process.
Could I make a motion?
Sure.
I'd like to move that the Long-Range Planning Committee come back at the next meeting with a plan for stakeholder engagement on the matter of the Immersive Learning Center.
I'll second that.
Plan.
And is it just the Immersive Learning Center, or is it the Townsend-centric model, or?
We'll add it all.
Plan, right? It would
We'll
be on
add
the
it
future
all.
plan, all of it.
Yeah,
On all the
maybe,
future
maybe
planning.
strike the last few words, yeah. Come up with a plan for stakeholder engagement.
Involvement.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
I'll second that. How are you doing?
Wait, it's not so
You're still on?
restrictive.
Okay.
Howard's
Howard's
on.
on.
Howard.
You guys figure out what works.
Yeah.
So Joe has a hand and Drew's unmuted, so you may just be being polite, but wants to say something.
Joe,
Yep.
and then,
Can I speak?
yeah, go ahead, Drew.
No, you gotta reach your hand.
So, just a reminder that the board gave this committee a charge. We presented that information, and a month ago, the board approved moving forward with doing the additional research necessary in order to get that public engagement. We are exactly on the timeline that the board gave us. So we were asked to look for information. We gathered that information last month. We were 1 month since the board said, yes, go forward and get us more information. The public engagement component of this discussion is the timeline that you're speaking of now. Like, that is what we were planning from the beginning. That's what the board directed us to do. It seems like what I'm hearing, at least, is that you were looking for us to have public engagement about a plan that wasn't created. And I think there's a lot of danger in going out and saying, from a long-term planning committee's perspective, this is the plan, because I don't think the board has made a decision as to what the plan is yet. So I think you've got to be careful as to how much public engagement you want before you guys decide what it is that you want. So if you want to go out and say, hey, this is what's going to happen, and the four of us have made a decision, this is what's going to happen, that's our public engagement, that's not what the board really wants, I don't think. So let us finish the research. All of our meetings are open. We're doing that research in public. Let us get the answers before we, throw this entire project out the window. As we said 3 hours ago, we're learning stuff. Every time we go down a rabbit hole, we're learning stuff. And yes, where are we getting that information from? The experts. The information about the septic came from our administration. The information about the finances we just got came from our administration. So the conversation seems to be that the Long-Term Planning Committee is not using the resources and getting the information from the experts that we have, and that is absolutely not the case. We are being guided by those people who we pay and trust in our world of education. And I think that's lost in this conversation.
Thanks, Drew. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, so my hand was actually up before the motion. I was going to try and say that I think the board needs to come up with this plan, not the Long-Term Planning Committee. They've done Drew is right in that they've done what we've asked. I think we need to rethink the charge a little bit. And rethink the configuration of the Long-Term Planning Committee, but rethinking the configuration of the Long-Term Planning Committee is not something that the board then should charge the Long-Term Planning Committee with. We should rethink it. And there are, we keep talking about public engagement. There are two, there's public engagement in the planning process, which we want, and then there's much larger public engagement in the this is the plan and this is why it works process. And we haven't done a whole lot. Well, we have not actively done. They've been open meetings, but they've been harder to get to, we've heard. There's no Zoom, we've heard. So it's been a little bit harder for the public perhaps to engage in the planning process. But we haven't even begun the engagement process of this is now what we think is best for our district and our school. So I don't know. I was thinking that we needed to take some time and actually think this through rather than at 10 o'clock at night after we've absorbed this huge amount of information and input, knee-jerk reaction, do something next. And I, specific to this motion, I think it's an unfair charge to go back to this committee and say, okay, now figure this part out. I think that's the board's job. Thank you.
It's a great point, Joe. Would you be willing to amend your motion?
Sure.
to make that our responsibility as opposed to long-term planning?
Yeah, I think it's a fair point, absolutely. So help me word this. So let's see, I move that the board
At our next meeting.
Not tonight. That we propose a structure for the long-range planning committee that will maximize stakeholder engagement. Ta-da.
Right. Second? Yep. Okay. All right. And
Membership, structure and or activities, how about that? Like, it doesn't have to be formal members who are forced to go to 4-hour meetings. It could just be that they're going to do a lot of focus groups or surveys or something. I want to give us the flexibility to think through this when we're not so tired.
Agreed.
So.
And we can come up with that structure next time.
So can we use that wording that we the board develop a proposed structure and or activities for the long-range planning committee to maximize stakeholder engagement. Ooh, that's a mouthful.
All right, discussion. Go ahead, Peter, and then, I'm sorry. Okay.
Well, I would like to make sure that the 4 existing members stay on, and I would like them to continue on next week and each week here, to continue on with what they're doing with the input that they've received tonight. But let people know when the meetings are, and anyone that wants to be involved can come and do Zoom, have a minute taker, try to somehow get the word out there for students to come in, and community members, faculty.
Yeah,
Even
agreed.
more so now, but I would like this team to keep going.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Peter.
I worry that because your next meeting would be in a month, right? This board's meeting?
Mm-hmm.
I would just worry that would be a month of wasted time. So if we could allow them to keep working, and I would like to say the westrivered.org, is that the right website?
WestRiver.org.
Please, if you have questions about what they are doing, some of those questions can be answered. I spent about an hour on that website the other day researching about this. Please spend time on there. A lot of these questions that were asked tonight can be answered on that website, including you can access a calendar that will, I believe, has some of their meetings. So I just don't want this month to be wasted time.
Right, no, agreed. I think they should continue their research, absolutely.
Maybe I
Well,
should
we're
just
gonna-
withdraw the
our point-
motion.
Well, they're still meeting anyway.
Yeah, right.
We never said anything that they
Right,
couldn't
right.
meet. They're still meeting.
Our point would
So,
be just that.
actually-
Oh, go ahead, Drew.
What would we be meeting for? Because I don't know where we're at this point. So I'm not sure what we're moving forward with or on or continuing to research, given that it sounds like we've kind of stopped.
I don't think so. I mean, we just said that we don't feel as though we're far enough forward into this process to enact it for this budget cycle. That's really what we're saying. And that we would like to, after hearing from a lot of folks in the community and from the administration and students, that they would like to be engaged in the process. Does that help?
Yeah, I just, after the last 3 hours of conversation, I'm not really sure where we're at. It sounded a lot to me like we're starting over with a new committee next month. That's what it sounds to me like. So if that's what we're doing, then what are we supposed to work on for the next month? It sounds like we're about to start over again with a new charge and a new committee. That's what I just heard the motion to say.
I believe we put it on ourselves, on the board, at our next meeting, to look at how could we best help the Long-Term Planning Committee in helping others engage in the process.
That's the essence of what I was trying to propose. Thank you.
Yeah. He's in his car.
Okay, so we have a vote
Okay.
on the...
Yeah, he has more discussion.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, I would like, what I would like to see is a referendum vote. I'd like to see this, whatever we come up with, whatever the Long-Term Planning Commission's, the plan that would be, that the Planning Commission would want the board to enact. I would like to see that presented to the public for a referendum vote. Because I think this is something that is so big, it affects our communities so much that we really need to know how people think. So I would say that if we want to, target a plan, let's plan to have a plan for election day next year, to put before the people. And, like I said, you're not going to convince me, but if you convince a majority of our residents that it's better to send all the kids to one campus in Townsend, let's put it out there.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Just a quick question, Al.
Sure.
With something like this, do we even need a motion to direct ourselves to do something? Just put it on the agenda and it happens. I mean, it's really late. We're kind of caught up in this. We need a motion thing. I'm like,
Agreed.
a motion to tell the board to do something.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Yes.
Voice of reason.
Will you withdraw your motion?
Yes.
That was my last living brain cell.
Okay.
Mike,
Thanks. Let's correct ourselves. Yes. We're all getting a little punchy.
Can we move on to the third item now?
Yeah, let's try that.
We haven't gotten to the second one.
WCSU WRED admin request.
Okay, so in your packet, there is a letter that is 3 paragraphs. It is signed by all the administrators from West River Ed, as well as the other administrators from the WCSU. After the WCSU meeting on September 29th, the administrators met and had a discussion about their colleagues, their staff members, and wrote a letter to the executive committee, which considered this request, and the executive committee, which is all the board chairs of the WCSU, voted unanimously to recommend it to the WCSU board on October 27th. In the meantime, the River Valleys Board, the Wyndham Board, and the Marlboro Board have all taken up this request and have all unanimously voted in favor of that. So tonight, West River gets the opportunity to hear this request from your administrators and the administrators from other schools in the WCSU to consider this request. I don't know if either, did I nail it okay? Okay. So basically, the administrators are recognizing the challenging year, the challenging dynamics of their colleagues teaching in this environment, and they would very much like the board's support in allowing a non-student day, the Tuesday prior to Thanksgiving, to be given as a wellness day for the individuals that are employed by West River Education.
I'll entertain that motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Oh, Joe's got his hand.
I couldn't just yell like Ken. I was going to make the motion.
Fine, I withdraw my motion. You want to make the motion, Joe? Go ahead.
Done.
No, I want to go home from my office.
Any discussion? Seeing none. Take a vote. Go ahead, Joe, since you're open.
Yes, aye.
Emily.
Aye.
Is there anybody else out there?
Drew.
Drew. Geez, sorry, Drew. Where is he?
Drew popped out, maybe?
I don't see him.
I don't know, wait, he's there.
He's there.
Probably doesn't have service. What part of this?
Okay.
Nancy?
I don't see him. Is he on there?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
on.
Oh.
Actually, Drew left a second ago. I'm sorry. I know I'm not supposed to speak out of turn, but I saw it and I feel like no one else did.
No, he's back.
His name's on the list.
Okay. Jan?
Aye.
He's back.
Ken?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Drew's on there.
Try it one more time.
Drew?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. All right, unanimous. Motion carries.
Mr. Clausen, can I just say that this is not in response to bad attitudes. This is actually in response to good attitudes. And this is more of a thank you than it is something that we're doing to like help folks that are weakened. I feel like our staff is extremely strong right now, and this is going to send a message directly from you guys to the people that you employ that says thank you for what you've done over the last year and a half. And the administration, that's why Bob brought this up, I believe, to begin with, was because we can't thank him enough. And this is a really big deal. The day before Thanksgiving is very special. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Approved minutes of September 20th, 2021.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none. Joe?
It's frozen.
Can't unmute. Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
Drew?
Not here still.
Aye.
Leanne?
Aye.
Lindsay?
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Call you.
Ping pong. All right. We've all read
Mr.
the...
Chair,
Yes.
could I make the suggestion to alter the agenda to take E from old business and policy A and B and move them to the 15th?
Yes, you
And principals reports, your principals have left.
Yeah.
So
That's what they're reporting.
as soon as, notice they all stayed.
Report, it has been provided all to you.
Yes.
And I just need Joe and Dana to do the financials, and you guys are good to go.
All right.
I approved of the financials for this.
Okay.
What, 2 weeks? Is it 2 weeks?
All right.
You got an
You
amount?
making that motion?
Oh, I don't have the amount on me.
I have the.
Hang on, I got it.
Okay, I'll let
We'll
Joe.
let
Joe.
Joe do it
Joe,
then. See if it matches mine.
I would move to move to approve pay orders in the amount of $396,746.41.
Nicely done.
Is that correct?
I second it.
Thank you. Discussion?
Falling asleep.
Seeing none, Joe's still open mic, go ahead.
Yep, aye.
Emily?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye.
Leanne?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. And I think we moved everything else, right? So let's get that final motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, Leanne, you want it?
You have it?
Yeah.
I'll take the second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Drew?
Aye.
Leanne?
Say aye.
Lindsay?
Lindsay?
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, yes.
And
Aye.
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 carries unanimously. Thank you.